The day Izuku Midoriya turned 5, his life changed forever. Instead of awakening a normal Quirk, a mysterious voice echoed inside his mind. "Good morning, Izuku." That voice wasn't a person. It was his Quirk. From that moment onward, Izuku's entire life became a living RPG. Every chore became a quest. Every challenge rewarded experience. Every victory unlocked new abilities. While other children simply trained their quirks, Izuku was leveling up like the main character of a fantasy game. His quirk granted him 4 incredible classes. A psychic who could command objects with his mind. A magus who controlled blazing fire. A warrior whose strength shattered limits and later summoned legendary weapons. And a druid capable of healing, communicating with nature, and even transforming into animals. With every completed quest, Izuku grew stronger. New skills awakened, hidden evolutions appeared, and his mysterious system constantly pushed him toward becoming something far greater than an ordinary hero. Unlike the world everyone knew, Bakugo never abandoned him. His parents stood proudly by his side, encouraging every step of his journey. Together, they watched the boy who once dreamed of becoming a hero slowly transform into someone whose potential had no ceiling. By the time the entrance to UA approached, Izuku wasn't just another hopeful student. He was a hero who had been leveling up his entire life. But the higher his level climbed, the more dangerous the enemies waiting for him became. Because somewhere beyond the next quest, the greatest battle of his life was already beginning. Let's go. Before we dive in, if you enjoy dark, powerful what-if stories like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. Your support helps bring more stories like this to life, and it only takes a second. Now, let's begin.
It is a normal day for little Izuku. He's having his usual breakfast with his mom and dad, happily chowing down on the rice in his bowl. A voice startles him. They are greeting him with a kindness and calmness that he is used to hear in his mother's voice when she puts him to bed. "Good morning, Izuku," they say, as Izuku looks around the room with wide eyes. "Good morning? Who are you?" he asks when he sees nobody who doesn't belong there. His mother looks at him with a curious expression. "Izuku, dear, who are you talking to?" "Someone just said good morning to me," he responds, slightly scared at the implication that his mother didn't hear the same thing. "There is no need to panic." The voice pipes up again. "I am merely your quirk. You may name me to make speaking easier." Izuku settles down a bit and looks between his mother and father, who look as confused as he feels. "My quirk?" he asks. His parents' faces light up, but they don't interrupt the seemingly ongoing conversation. "Indeed. I grant you different abilities. You may distribute 4 points today. The next point will follow on your next birthday or as reward for special quests." Izuku looks puzzled. "Can I finish eating first?" he asks the heir. "Of course. Just call to me when you need me." They answer and he feels them laying dormant in his mind. He continues eating his meal when his mother speaks up again. "Izuku, you got your quirk," she exclaims happily. He nods just as enthusiastic as she feels, bouncing up and down in his chair but continues to eat nonetheless. "I'm so happy for you. Now you can finally tell Katsuki that you have your quirk as well," she says, picking up her food again. After breakfast is finished, the dishes cleaned and workplaces notified, Izuku sits in the living room with both his parents. The little 5-year-old hesitates and looks at his parents for advice before hesitantly speaking up. "Quirk." He feels it coming to him in the back of his mind before they speak up once again. "Hello, Izuku. Are you ready to distribute your 4 points now, or do you want a quick explanation of what I can do?" "Explanation, please," he calls, getting a pat on the head from his mother for the politeness. "Please choose a topic." "There are stats, quests, and abilities," they answer. He hums for a second before replying, "Stats. The points that you have available are used to level up your stats. You gain 1 point on every birthday and can earn some already distributed points in special quests. Stats are your passive abilities. There are 6 stats: strength, agility, endurance, intelligence, wisdom, and wit. Strength enhances your physical prowess and muscles. Agility allows you to react faster and move more quickly. Endurance determines how much you can take, be it sickness or injuries. Intelligence equals to book smarts. The higher this stat, the easier it is for you to understand technical things, mathematics, physics, school in general. Wisdom, on the other hand, makes up your street smarts, making up plans and strategies, learning new things with your abilities, and basic common sense. Finally, wit grants you the power of words, persuasion, and the likes. Izuku thinks for a moment, then decides, I'd like to put the points down, please. What stat would you like to raise? Say its name and 1 point will be put forward. Intelligence, agility, strength, and intelligence. Suddenly, there is something akin to a pop-up window in his vision. Izuku startles and squints at it. I can't read that yet, he mumbles. He can see a few numbers he remembers from school though, zeros, ones, and a do you want me to continue with the next topic? Yes, please. What are quests? He asks and continues to listen, as the pop-up fades into nothingness. Quests are tasks that other people give you. Teachers, family, friends. Each quest grants an amount of quest points, or QP for short, depending on its challenge for your current abilities. Should you fail a quest, there won't be repercussions on your already earned points, but you won't get the reward, of course. Some quests can grant you points in specific stats that correlate to the quest itself. QP are used to cultivate your abilities. Izuku began mumbling about halfway through, already planning to ask his parents and Kaken for stuff to do for them. When his Quirk's voice finished, it stays silent until his head is cleared from all the information. He pipes up again after a few minutes. So what are my abilities? Abilities are the more physical manifestation of me. I can make you take on 4 different forms. The first form is psychic. It allows you to move objects in any way you want, without needing to touch them. At first you can only lift small things, but as time goes on and the more QP you spend here, the more you can lift and move. The second form is magus. This grants you the power of creating and manipulating fire at your will. Don't worry though, this form is rather weak in the beginning, so you won't be able to destroy anything if there are adults to supervise you. Your third form would be warrior. It is mainly a strength enhancement form that allows you to raise your strength stat for however long you decide to activate this form. Depending on how many QP you spend in this form, the stronger you get. Later on, you will have a second facet available for this form, but it is locked for now. Last but not least is your fourth form, druid. With it, you can use the surrounding energy from nature to heal wounds and sickness. This is also weak in the beginning, only usable for scrapes and maybe a runny nose. This form also has a second facet to it that will be unlocked at a later time. Izuku's eyes sparkle when he looks at his parents again after his Quirk finished their explanation. He asks the heir, how do I activate those forms? You just need to ask me to activate it. Points distribution will become available when you earned your first 5 QP. Please activate Magus, he calls excitedly, bouncing in his seat. He feels a familiar warmth collect in his body, and as he stretches out his hand, a small, candle-sized flame dances above his palm. His father looks at him with a proud smile, putting one of his hands in his son's mop of hair. His mother is in tears, happily squealing for her son, before pulling him and his dad in for a family hug. Later that same day, Izuku is brought in for his Quirk's registration by his parents. School was called beforehand so he got a free day and the Bakugas were informed by Inko, so Katsuki wouldn't wait in front of their home the whole day. With Mitsuki's words, the brat can't sit still, now that he knows Izuku got his Quirk. Katsuki seems at least as excited about the whole ordeal as Izuku himself. The doctor asked Izuku different questions, that his Quirk answered for him most of the time and he parroted it to the man. You sound like you've rehearsed something for all these questions. Do you always rethink your answers? The blond man with white, curled horns and long, white, floppy ears asks calmly. This one Izuku answered on his own, immediately exclaiming, no, my Quirk talks to me. It's really nice because I don't know some of the words it's saying, so I repeat them. He smiles. The doctor jots down more information. Do you have a name for it, yet? No, I don't know. It seems like one simple name can't fit all the things they can do. Izuku mutters thoughtfully. May I make a suggestion? He asks the boy, to which he gets an enthusiastic nod. How about RPG? He suggests. Izuku thinks this over. RPG, he repeats, what does it mean? RPG is an old genre of board and video games, and what you described fits it down to a T. The letters mean role-playing game. After another short moment of thought, where the doctor is unsure if the boy's quirk is talking to him again or not, his face lights up and he begins bouncing on his chair, nodding excitedly. That sounds super cool. RPG. He halts, but that's not a name I would like to call them. Don't worry, little one. You can call them what you like, but the Quirk Registry would call them RPG, as official name, like yours is Izuku, but not everyone calls you Izuku all the time, right? Like a nickname, the man suggests. This makes Izuku light up again, but he isn't bouncing anymore. Yes. That's a great idea. He nods once more. Thanks a lot, Mr. Dreamer, you're nice. Izuku exclaims with a big smile. His parents wrap up the visit at the office with a lot of signed papers and bring Izuku with them to the store. His mother wants to buy ingredients to make Izuku's favorite tonight, katsudon. In the evening, Inko and Hisashi are cooking together and Izuku asks them for tasks to do. His quirk logs them all individually as quests. So over the course of just the meal preparation, Izuku gains 1 QP, quest point, for cleaning the table, 2 QP for setting out the plates and cutlery, for 6 people not just 3, and another 1 QP for folding up the comforters on the sofa. The next time he returns to his parents to ask for more tasks, the doorbell rings. His mother chuckles, Izuku, would you be a dear and open up the door for us? RPG provides him with a quick pop-up he confirms with a nod and rushes over to the door. When he opens it, a flurry of ash blonde and red crashes into him, effectively knocking him to the ground. I see. Katsuki yells, getting off of his friend to help him up. You got your quirk? Hurry up and spill, what is it? He urges as he pulls Izuku to his feet again. Katsuki's parents pass them to properly greet their hosts when Izuku finally finds his voice. Hey Kaken, yeah I did. They venture over to the living room to plop down on the couch. He tries explaining it in his own words so Katsuki would understand, ignoring the urge of his quirk trying to explain itself again. The doctor said it's like an old video game. Oh, that's so cool, the blonde wonders. What does it do? Well, I can have 4 different modes. Izuku ignites a small candle-sized flame in the palm of his hand. This one is called Magus. At least my quirk called it that. I can make fire, like Dad. Magus. Katsuki parrots. Wait, there's 3 more? Your quirk is way too good, he complains. Izuku chuckles but continues. There's Psychic, where I can move things without touching them, like Mom. Show me, his friend demands, eagerly leaning forward with his hands on the couch. He furrows his brow. I can't use the moving things when I'm using fire. I need to change, but I haven't done that yet. What? Then change it. Katsuki says. RPG. Izuku asks the air. His quirk answers his call easily. What can I do for you, Izuku? I'd like to change to Psychic, please, he asks, uncertain if this would work. He feels something inside of him shift, the heat that encompassed him retreating to make place for the warmth he remembers from when his mom was able to lift him with her quirk. He's since become too heavy for her. Psychic, activated. You collected 5 QP, do you wish to distribute the points now? His quirk asks. No thank you, not now. Izuku answers and the voice falls dormant once again. And? Did it work? The blonde urges. I think so, he replies and gestures for the remote on the side table. He feels a connection before the item flings itself into his hand with more speed than anticipated, making him yelp out a startled cry. Inko rushes into the room, motherly instincts demanding to make sure her child is safe, finding both boys securely seated on the sofa. Izuku has the TV remote in his hand, staring at it with wide eyes. Whoa! Katsuki exclaims, that was way faster than when Auntie does that. When I do what? She asks and approaches both kids. When you pull something, Mom, Izuku answers in his friend's stead. He reaches out towards a pillow on the recliner, which immediately reacts and hurls itself into his hand. She chuckles. Well, you'll have to practice this part of your quirk, if you want to pull bigger things and not hurt yourself with the heavier stuff. Inko softly chides and takes both items from Izuku's small hands, putting them back into place. Food is ready, they hear Masaru call from the kitchen. The kids are up and out of the room faster than Inko can call, "Don't run inside," so she just follows them to the dining room. After dinner, the adults retire in the living room while the boys disappear in Izuku's room. Katsuki hot on his heels, the freshly quirked boy jumps up on his bed, the blonde following shortly after. "So, you can do fire like your dad and pull things around like auntie, but that's two. You said you can do 4 things. Katsuki wonders and gets into Izuku's face to hurry him up. "Yeah, there's warrior and dash," he hesitates, but his quirk provides him with the right word and continues, "and druid," Izuku finishes. "And what do those do?" his friend urges him on eagerly. "Well," Arpy says, "warrior makes me stronger dash." He's interrupted by an excited exclamation. "Like All Might." Katsuki calls. "I mean, I don't think I'm that strong. But stronger than now, I guess." Izuku gestures to try and calm his excited counterpart. "Show me, show me, show me." "RPG? Switch to warrior, please," Izuku says to the air, this time not waiting for the voice to respond. The cozy feeling makes way for a slight swelling in his muscles. He feels the strain of his body to accommodate the added brawn and wonders at the changes to his hands. "Ooh," comes the fascinated exclamation, "You're bigger. I want to be bigger too." They both get up from Izuku's bed, comparing sizes. And, sure enough, Izuku is now a smidge taller than Katsuki. "No fair. My quirk doesn't make me grow," the now smaller of the two complains. Izuku can't help but chuckle. "I'm sure I'll be shorter again when I use one of the other forms." He commands his quirk once more, "Arping, switch to the druid." As he visibly deflates, Izuku feels a pressure at the top of his head. He feels a buzz in the air and the audible gasp coming from Katsuki makes him look at the mirror attached to his wardrobe. To his surprise, there is a pair of horns sticking out of his green curls. They are a dark grayish color, just barely peeking over the fluffy mess. He touches one of them, marveling at the texture they have. "I'm a goat," he yells, unsure if he should be excited or concerned. His hands are batted away by the other boy, who was just watching him for that moment. "Let me see," he mutters under his breath, tilting Izuku's head down to properly look at the new addition to his friend's head. "Those don't look like goat horns though." "Kaken is so smart. What could it be?" he asks, retreating out of the grip of his friend to properly look at him again. Katsuki gasps, "Your eyes," which makes him turn to his mirror again immediately. He doesn't know how to react to the faint glow his eyes seem to emit. He gets closer to the surface of the glass, to get a closer look at the little swirling shapes of soft green light in his irises. Izuku marvels at them for a moment, before there's a knock on his bedroom door. "Come in," he calls and Mitsuki sticks her head through the slightly ajar door. "We're going home for tonight." "Come on, Katsuki," she says and lays eyes on Izuku. She stares for a second before calling out behind her without breaking eye contact, "Inku." "Yees?" comes the call from somewhere beyond the door. "Your kid's glowing," Mitsuki says, and instantly there were footsteps. Not a moment later a panicked-looking Inko bursts through the door. "Izuku, what happened?" she asks as she rushes over to her son, kneeling on the floor to be eye level with him. "It's Druid, Mum, my eyes glow," he says happily. "And he got horns," Katsuki adds. "Horns?" Inko calls and fusses over her son's head, finding the small protrusions beneath his hair. "Oh, Izu, baby, are you okay? Does it hurt?" she asks worriedly. "No, I barely noticed before Kaken said anything. With the grow. I'm bigger than Kaken that way," he explains, all smiles. Katsuki crosses his arms where he stands behind Izuku, pouting, "No fair. My quirk doesn't make me grow." Mitsuki barely contains a laugh. "Heh, serves you right, brat. But we gotta go now, it's late." "Come on," she says and stretches out her hand. As if on cue, Katsuki yawns and blindly grabs for his mother's hand before being pulled up into her arms. He turns halfway and waves to his friend, "Bye, bye Izu, see you in school." Katsuki trails off tiredly. "Bye bye Kaken, ya see you tomorrow," he answers and waves back. Thanks for having us over, Inko. Mitsuki says in an unusually quiet voice to not disturb the half-asleep kid in her arms. It was our pleasure. It was a big day after all, we had to celebrate. Inko replies and waves her hand in the air to play it down. Izuku, be a dear and get prepared for bed. Dad will read you your bedtime story after you're done. Ever vigilant, RPG activates and Izuku accepts quietly with a nod and a quick hug for his mom, before scurrying off to the bathroom. 1 QP and a bedtime story later, Izuku lays asleep, RPG fresh in his mind and present in his dreams. When his mother wakes him up, RPG immediately pops up into his vision, a shining 6, glowing faintly at him. As soon as Inko left the room to let him change into his preschool's uniform, RPG pipes up. Congratulations, Izuku. You earned 6 QP yesterday. Do you want to spend the points in your active form, Druid, or do you want to activate a different form first? He tiredly rubs his eyes and scratches his head, bumping into the small horns that grew on his head last night. He almost forgot about those. What would happen to the different forms with the 6 QP? He asks and gets up, looking for his clothes in the wardrobe. Druid would be able to heal more efficiently, so scratchy throat or a small cut would not be a problem. Warrior would gain you some more strength, but not enough to be really noticeable. Psychic would gain some more power, allowing you to lift slightly heavier things. Finally, Magus would be able to produce and manipulate a bigger flame, maybe as big as a torchlight. Please note that once spent on one of your forms, the QP can't be put somewhere else. Izuku mulls this over while slipping into his pants. When he arrives at his socks, he answers his quirk. Put the points into Druid, please. Affirmative. His quirk chips, giving him another small pop-up in his vision that states the QP spent, the ones still available, and what his Druid form can now do, not that he could read it. Why was his quirk using characters that he hasn't learned to read properly yet, anyways? While walking out of his room, going for the kitchen, he feels his quirk doing something. He wonders what's happening and asks the air when he enters the kitchen, RPG, what are you doing? Text settings changed from kanji to hiragana. It states automatically. You were having trouble understanding the level messages. I adjusted to something that should be easier to read. Oh, thank you, he says and sits down at the table where his mother places his breakfast in front of him. Good morning, Mom, he smiles. Good morning, Izuku. I see you're working with your quirk again, very good. She greets back and smiles. I'd like you to eat your food and get ready for school, please. Inko tells him and triggers his quirk with it. This time he can read the little quest pop-up. It states, Quest registered. Eat breakfast and get ready for school. Reward, 1 QP. Accept quest? He nods and thanks his mother for the meal before digging in. When Izuku steps out of the house, a pop-up tells him that he finished his quest, rewarding him with 1 QP. Additionally, it speaks up, congratulations for earning more QP. Do you want to automatically put the points into the active form, as long as there is no alternative? Alternative, he asks, waving hello to Kaken and falling into step next to him. He doesn't interrupt Izuku's conversation and just listens to the one side he can hear. 2 of your 4 forms will have 2 possible uses in the future. At the moment, there is only one, so the QP would only be spent on one thing in your forms. Oh, but I'd like to save up. Don't put them in automatically, please. He chirps and finally settles his attention on his neighbor and best friend. Good morning, Kaken, Izuku smiles. Good morning, Aizu. He answers and looks closer at the top of Izuku's head. Hey, your horns are getting bigger, he notes. Are they? Izuku replies and touches them, feeling that they have indeed grown out a bit. I guess that's a side effect of putting QP in Druid, but I don't mind, it doesn't hurt after all, he explains. So what, can you be a better goat man now? Katsuki teases with a grin. Izuku playfully shoves him in the shoulder. Stop calling me a goat, you said yourself that they aren't goat horns. The blonde laughs and soon the 2 of them arrive at their preschool. The teacher waves them in, congratulating Izuku on getting his quirk. The other kids all but swarmed the green-haired boy, urging him to show off his quirk. Some marvel at his glowing eyes, others comment on his horns. At the mention of the horns, Katsuki speaks up at one of their caretakers. "Oh yes, Miss Usagi, we don't know what kind of horns Izu is growing there. Can you look?" The woman with big brown and floppy bunny ears turns to him and answers, "Sure, we can try and figure it out. Izuku-kun, come over here for a second, okay?" The boy perks up at the mention of his name and trots over to answer, "Yeah, Miss Usagi? Katsuki-kun here said you don't know what kind of horns you got. Would you like to try and figure it out with me?" she asks him sweetly. He nods eagerly, answering, "Yes, please," with a big smile. She chuckles at his antics, walking over to the room's PC with him to look through their animal pictures. Katsuki trails behind them, and when the second caretaker tries stopping him, Izuku takes his hand and smiles at her. She shrugs her shoulders and gets back to the rest of the group. Izuku is allowed to sit on the comfortable desk chair, while Katsuki stands in front of him between his legs and Miss Usagi stands next to them to operate the device. While browsing for pictures and trying to keep his hair flat enough to let the caretaker look at the still really short horns, the boys excitedly explain Izuku's quirk to her, that this form is just one facet of his quirk's abilities. She goes along with both of them, seemingly as excited as her charges. Her eyes land on one animal in particular and she points to it. "Hey look boys. This one looks pretty similar, doesn't it?" Both boys get their faces as close to the screen as they can, yelling "Really?" in unison. "What's a kudu?" Izuku asks quietly, inspecting the animal's head to try and compare the horns with his. It's a type of antelope that lives in Africa. Their horns start out pretty straight like yours, are rather slim and start twisting around themselves when they get longer. Miss Usagi summarizes the text next to the picture. "So Izu's a deer, not a goat?" Katsuki asks with a smirk. Izuku baps him on the head. "Stop saying that, Kaken, it's mean." "And no hitting people, Izun," Miss Usagi chides softly, gaining a sheepish apology from the green-haired boy. "Now let's go, get back to your classmates." She ushers them away from the PC and turns it into standby. The day continues with the teachers/caretakers giving out tasks every time Izuku asks for them, justifying it with his quirk, which Katsuki always confirms when anyone questions his reasoning. By the end of the day, Izuku gained another 10 QP and even 1 point for his wit stat. On the way home, they excitedly talk about the possibilities of the druid part of Izuku's quirk when Katsuki stops in his tracks. "Kaken?" Izuku questions, stopping as well and turning halfway. "Growing plants?" "I think," he answers and lifts a hand to pluck something off of one of the horns. Sure enough, that's a little sprout in Katsuki's hand. "Okay. Hey, RPG." Izuku takes the small plant from his fireend's hand, inspecting it a bit closer. "How may I help you?" His quirk replies. "Why are my horns growing plants?" he asks, while taking Katsuki's hand in his unoccupied one and continuing on their way home. "Your horns are the catalyst for your druid powers. They take the surrounding nature's energy and store it in your body to use at a later point in time. Should your body run out of this power, they directly convert the energy into your actions. This would make your powers dependent on the surrounding energy though, so it's not recommended to always use up the stored energy." His quirk explains. "And the plants?" he wonders. "The plants are an indicator of how much energy surrounds you when they are grown. You can take them off, but they will regrow. In very energy-rich areas, the plants begin blooming." They elaborate. Izuku repeats the information his quirk gave him to Kaken, so he wouldn't be left out. Soon enough, they arrive at the Midoriya's doorstep where Katsuki drops his friend off and waves goodbye, all the way to his own doorstep at the house next doors to Izuku's. At night, having denied his father when he asked if he should tell him a bedtime story, Izuku is talking with his quirk quietly. "Hey, RPG," he whispers to the ceiling. His quirk replies equally as quiet, almost making him chuckle if he wasn't this tired. "What can I do for you?" "I don't want to keep calling you RPG. I want to give you a name, but I don't know what would fit," he says, his brow furrows with frustration. Izuku concentrates on it in the back of his mind, until it answers, "Any name that you think of will be fitting. I'm your quirk. Nobody can say that it's wrong." He mulls this over, staying silent for several minutes. When he doesn't speak up, the voice asks, "What things do you like?" Maybe this way you can find something you would like to call me. I like heroes. And Katsudon. He answers easily, then lights up with an idea. Kaden. Kaden sounds like a great name. You left out the second character of Katsudon, didn't you? The voice answers, even with a tone of mirth if Izuku isn't hallucinating. Then I'll call you Kaden, he concludes, turning on his side to finally fall asleep. Kaden, switch to psychic. Izuku calls and skids across the grass to keep from falling. He's being chased by Katsuki, several other kids running away from the blonde as well, but he's only chasing after Izuku anyways. Give up, Izu. You know I'm faster than you. Katsuki taunts from behind him, but Izuku can just laugh. He takes off, lifting himself with his quirk, floating in the air a good few meters over the ground, way out of reach from his friend. Katsuki propels himself after the green net with explosions, crashing into the laughing boy, and both go hurtling into a nearby tree. Not a moment later, both come floating out of the spot they crashed into, carried by Izuku's quirk and laughing. And here I thought I only need to do this when I'm using Druid. He complains jokingly while picking leaves from his hair and bringing them down safely to the ground. Kids, the cake is ready. Inko calls from the back porch. Izuku and Katsuki look at each other, before darting off towards the house, their other friends also walking back. It's the 15th of July, Izuku's 12th birthday. Katsuki convinced his parents to give Izuku tickets for the big aquarium for the occasion, so they both can go there on the approaching Saturday. For now, they enjoy the cake Izuku's mother has expertly baked, spending the day with a few of their classmates and each other. Saturday arrived fast, finding Izuku, Katsuki and their mothers in the local aquarium. Both their dads decided to hang out together, having both of the houses to themselves for the day. The small group, the kids more than the women, excitedly bounced through the building, stopping every 2 meters to gaze and animatedly chat about the creatures in the tanks. Izuku's glowing green druid eyes reflect in the glass surface of the tanks. About halfway through the park, around lunchtime, the intercom comes to life, announcing the animal show that would happen in an hour. Excited to see the animals in action, the boys can barely contain their boundless energy. As soon as it was time, the group of 4 found themselves front row seats to the show with the promise of even getting to pet some of the creatures. The beluga whales were being led by someone with a quirk that imitates animal sounds, conversing with the gentle giants to lead them through their show and back into their respective tank. The orcas showed off their teeth, being rewarded with lots of tuna for their efforts. When the seals were brought in, a woman with an otter tail and ears poking through her cap speaks up through the microphone attached to her head. These guys are really happy every time they can shake hands with someone they don't already know. Do we have some brave individuals who would like to accept? She calls, and throughout the audience, several hands shoot into the air. Katsuki and Izuku bounce in their seats, stretching their arms as high as they could go. The glowing of Izuku's eyes apparently catches her attention, because she points to them and calls, "The 2 boys front row, come on up." They look at their mothers briefly, barely noticing them nod, before bounding up to the stage towards the woman and 2 of her seals. "What are your names, boys?" she asks. "I'm Katsuki, and this is Izuku," the blonde answers for both of them, Izuku nodding along fast. "Katsuki and Izuku. These 2 guys are called Berry and Cream," she announces, the seals raising one of their flippers each to shake as reaction to the introduction. Katsuki goes up to the first one, ever the leader of his little pack, taking the seal's offered appendage carefully and shakes it side to side. His grin grows and he turns halfway, letting go of the seal to encourage his friend to do the same. Izuku slowly approaches the other seal, unfortunately the bigger one of the 2, and stretches out his hand shakily. He doesn't notice his eyes glowing brighter and brighter, accepting the seal's shake. It instantly goes wrong. With a shout, the woman next to him startles. Katsuki shoots over to him and he barely notices their mothers scurrying up to him as well. He tries asking what's wrong, but they all just shake their heads. He yells in his head for Kaden to tell him what's wrong, when their voice relievingly fills his head. "Congratulations, Izuku. You unlocked the second facet of Druid. You can now change shape into any animal you have touched in the past from this point on. Points spent on this ability will grant you longer transformation time. To turn back, Just think so and I will react accordingly. With a few heavy breaths, he is able to concentrate enough to turn back. He sees his mother fussing over him, Katsuki at his side, and Mitsuki is talking to the otter woman, trying to keep her from calling her supervisor for an emergency. Said woman visibly relaxes and stuffs her phone back into her pocket when she sees the boy returned to his human state. "Are you all right, Izuku?" she asks, kneeling down next to him. "Why? That was my quirk. Apparently any animal I touch from now on I can transform into," he explains and looks up at his mom. She has tears in her eyes because of course she does, and hugs him closely. "You are amazing, Izuku. I just hope it doesn't scare us like this again," she says. They all get back to their seats and after a few moments, the show goes on. During the rest of the performance, Izuku even gets to touch a few more animals, now that the employees know about his quirk and want to offer him a bigger amount of possibilities. The day ends after lots of laughter and many new discoveries on Izuku's RPG. It's a few days later when Izuku uses his warrior again. He doesn't regularly use this form, because it upsets Kaken with how he grows taller than the blonde with this facet of his quirk. He needs it right now though. There's quiet mewling coming from underneath a stone plate that's laying around near a construction site, so he suspects that a cat or something else tried hiding from the noise and got stuck. He needs to think about this for a moment. If he moves the plate at the wrong side, he might crush the poor thing instead of saving it. He crouches down, trying to find the source of the noise, and spots a very small, dark gray kitten. A tiny bell glints at him from the darkness, so this is a cat that belongs to someone. Resolve hardened, he gets back on his feet, grabs the plate and pulls. But it doesn't move. He panics. How is he supposed to get that poor kitten out from under there when he can't lift this stupid stone plate? An idea forms in his mind and he looks around. Finding another pile of big stones, he picks out one as big as he dares to carry, setting it down carefully next to the spot he tried lifting the plate at, trying not to scare the kitten. He looks around again, increasingly worried for the cat because the noises it's making get quieter by the minute. Izuku feels his quirk activate and marvels at the long metal staff that materializes in his hand as answer to his growing panic. "Congratulations, Izuku. You unlocked the second facet of Warrior. You can now summon weapons at will. Higher amounts of points in this ability will grant you a wider range of possible weapons and easier learning of handling them." His quirk chirps. "Just what I needed," he mutters and sticks the metal staff between the two rocks, praying to whatever god that's listening that the material is sturdy enough to lift this plate and not bend. Prayers apparently answered, the rock slowly lifts and out comes, in one dark blur, the kitten that clings to Izuku's leg for dear life. He sets the plate down again, the staff disappearing with its job well done. "Kaden, switch to the druid," he says quietly, bending down to peel the animal off his leg and hold it in his deflating arms. He pets it while the druid form takes its place, the horns on his head overgrown with small sprouts and the glowing of his eyes bright. Setting the kitty down on the ground, he turns into a cat himself, to talk to it. Frightened, it watches as the human that saved it disappears in a puff of light green smoke, revealing a forest green tomcat stepping out of it. "Don't be scared, you're okay now," he tells it. "Can you tell me who your owner is?" Izuku asks, sitting down and curling his striped tail around his white paws. "Owner?" the kitten asks. "I am not owned by anyone," it continues and puffs out its chest, all fear gone to be replaced with sass. "But if you're asking who gave me this shiny jingle on my neck, it was Shota." Izuku can't help but chuckle. The internet was right about cats. "Do you want me to walk home with you?" "So you're not scared," he offers, getting up and approaching. Yes please." "What can I call you?" "Shota calls me Bean," the kitten says and starts strutting down the sidewalk. Izuku follows, completely taken by the kitten's name and answers, "I'm Izuku." They chat a little about this and that, walking past the construction site and towards a district Izuku knows has lots of small, separate houses, much like his own neighborhood. They arrive at an unassuming little front gate and Izuku turns back after saying his goodbyes to Bean, taking her into his arms and ringing the doorbell. Out comes a scruffy-looking man with black hair and equally black eyes. Said eyes widen comically when he spots the small kid with horns and glowing eyes in front of his gate, holding the kitten he was looking for all day. "Bean," he calls with a softness that doesn't fit his looks at all in Izuku's opinion. "I found her near the construction site. She was scared and hid under a stone plate and got stuck." Izuku explains and hands over the small cat. "How did you know to come here? She doesn't even have a tag yet." The man, Shodai Aizawa, according to the door sign, asks suspiciously. Izuku sheepishly rubs his neck. "Oh, well, part of my quirk lets me transform into animals and I can talk to that specific species while I am one of them. So I did that and asked her if I should walk her home," he explains. Aizawa squints his eyes at him before muttering a, "Thank you then," and turning around to walk to the house. "Wait here for a moment." The man returns a moment later, Bean and two other cats, a very fluffy white one and an orange tabby, watching from the inside of the house. Aizawa holds out some bills to Izuku, silently urging him to take the money. The boy is taken aback but snaps out of it quickly to wave his arms from side to side. "Oh, I don't want a reward for this, Aizawa-san," he calls hastily. "I would have put up a reward for her as soon as I'd noticed she was gone anyways. I want you to have it," the man insists, jerking his hand towards the teen to emphasize. Izuku takes it, albeit hesitantly, and stuffing it away in one of his pockets. He bows deeply, watching out for the gate in front of him. "Thanks a lot, Aizawa-san. I'm the one thanking you, kid. Now go on, I'm sure you have other things to do," he mutters, turning to once again disappear in his house. The teen was well on his way and almost out of the street when he hears a muffled cry that sounded awfully like "Bean." He ignores it in favor of finally getting home. The next time he uses Magus, he's on a camping trip with Katsuki, who at first had to drag Izuku along. Once they were out far enough to breathe fresh air instead of the smog of the city though, Izuku knew what his childhood friend found so enticing about walking around and climbing in the wilderness. With a tent set up and some firewood collected in a proper fire pit, they sat and talked, waiting for night to approach. While Izuku used Seisik to carry some of their stuff along with them, he switched to Magus to light the fire. Katsuki's explosions could do that very easily as well, but not as safely. In the night, Izuku played around with the amount and heat of his fire, noticing that he could easily turn them blue with the increased heat. Short bursts of orange flames made him look a bit like his childhood friend, to which he eared a mean glare and unspoken threat. "Don't you dare copy me." Izuku didn't try to let his flames explode again after that. Instead, he created fireballs and streams that he shot at the night sky, lighting up the clearing they set up in with blue and orange light. Katsuki talked with him, trying to get Izuku's focus away from his flames, so he could learn to control them without having to constantly focus on them, which would be a potential hazard in their future work as heroes. When the sky began to change colors, both of them turned in and slept well into the following day, warmed by their sleeping bags and each other's presence. It's the final days of middle school. Izuku and Katsuki prepared for this for years now, quirks and bodies trained to their maximum capacity, at least what they could legally do without attending a straight-up hero school. When the teacher asked the class what they wanted to be and flung the forms in the air because all of you want to be heroes, Katsuki could only scoff. The noise made everyone shut up in an instant, knowing the explosive teen as rude and unpredictable with his equally as explosive quirk. "All of you extras don't even have a chance. Izuku and I will go to UA and become the best heroes you lot have ever seen," he calls from his chair, tilted back with his feet on the table. "Kaken, don't be mean. I'm sure they can be great heroes." Izuku tries reconciling, using his psychic, while everyone is distracted to collect the papers the teacher had flung around and stacking them on the table again. Said boy turns halfway in his chair, trying not to fall off in the awkward position this leaves him in. "Oh come on, compared to us they can't do sheet. And you know it," he says. Izuku sighs, leaving it be and being punctuated by the bell signaling the end of the day. The students file out of the school on their individual paths home, which leaves Katsuki and Izuku as last to go. "Hey, you want to go to the arcade with me?" "I don't want to go home yet," the blonde asks his friend as they head for the school gates. "Actually, I have to help my mom with something today, so I need to be home in time," Izuku says with an apologetic frown on his forehead. Katsuki shrugs. It's fine. We'll see each other later anyways." Take care, he calls over his shoulder, heading in a different direction than Izuku. Take care, the greenette answers and starts walking his own way. About halfway home, Izuku passes under a small bridge. The hair on his neck standing up in an uneasy feeling is the only warning he gets before the manhole behind him blows its cover against the bridge above, allowing a mound of mossy green sludge to exit the sewerage below. It covers him in an instant, saying something about a medium-sized disguise, and trying to pry Izuku's mouth open with the thick liquid. With the moment of panic, Izuku forgot he actually activated Psychic this morning. When the moment passes, he gasps out, accidentally allowing the disgusting-smelling slime to start entering his body. He activates his quirk, grabbing onto all of the sludge and prying it off of himself. The sludge screeches, struggling against the invisible restraints but being far from strong enough to break Izuku's control. The teen coughs and retches, the disgusting feeling in his mouth and the smell trying to get his breakfast to greet them. He swallows heavily, taking a bottle of water from his bag and gulping down a few mouthfuls to get rid of the taste. He gasps and puts his bottle away when he finally regards the criminal that tried taking him over with another cough. So, what? You wanted to take over my body? God, this taste is disgusting dash. Let me go, you maniac. The sludge screeches at him. Izuku does a double take. Wait, I'm the maniac? You were the one who tried drowning me in that disgusting slime of yours. Whatever the criminal wanted to say then, was interrupted by a boisterous laugh echoing from the manhole before a tall, very muscular man with bright blonde hair comes jumping out of it. All Might! Izuku calls, his control almost slipping, but thanks to his practice with Kaken, he is able to hold onto his quirk. Fear not, citizen. For I am here now, he calls and takes in the situation in front of him. A disheveled-looking teenager with dark green, almost black hair and the criminal he was chasing floating in a perfectly round blob next to the boy. My boy, did you stop this petty criminal for me? All Might asks, approaching them both while pulling out 2 large plastic bottles from his cargo pants. After he tried drowning me with that slime, yes. Izuku answers truthfully, commanding his quirk to cram the viscous liquid into the containers that the man had opened for him. All Might's smile falters but doesn't fall when he hears this. I am truly sorry, my boy. Had I been able to stop him sooner, this wouldn't have happened. He apologizes. Izuku waves it away. It's okay. I'm not hurt and this guy is on his best way to the police, I think, he replies, finishing with his task. All Might screws the bottle caps back on before storing the containers back in his pockets. May I do you some sort of favor, my boy? As thanks for stopping the criminal that I was unable to catch alone. Oh, actually Izuku starts, rummaging through his bag. Can you sign 2 pages of my notebook? One for my friend and one for me. The hero laughs the way he always does, holding out a hand. It is very considerate of you to ask for your friend as well, my boy. What are your names? He asks, accepting the notebook and marker Izuku hands him. My name is Izuku. Izuku Midoriya. And my friend's name is Katsuki Bakugu, comes the eager reply. All Might writes his signature and greeting for both boys, also adding a little doodle on Izuku's one with a small, thank you for your help speech bubble connected to it. When he hands the notebook back, Izuku is bouncing on his heels in excitement, looking over the 2 signed pages. Thank you so much, All Might. And thank you as well for everything you do for everyone, he says, bowing in a perfect 90 degrees angle. Big hands rise to wave away the formality. It is my pleasure to help, young Midoriya. Now I have to be off. This criminal won't deliver himself to the police after all, he says and crouches too. Prepare for a big jump. Izuku notices a bottle cap coming undone and reacts faster than he can think, attaching himself to All Might's leg right at the moment the hero takes off. All Might! Izuku screams over the wind that screeches past his ears. Said man turns his head, only to be surprised by the boy attached to his leg. What are you doing, boy? Let go! Izuku can only shake his head, unable to point when both his arms are wrapped around the leg. With a big boom, they land on a tall roof where Izuku instantly crashes into the concrete tiles. Oh, sweet ground. I prefer flying with my own quirk, holy din, he mutters. Behind him, he hears a hissing sound, and when he turns to look, there's a big cloud of steam where All Might should have been standing. With a gust of wind, the steam is blown away, revealing an emaciated, almost skeletal man with a big mane of blonde hair hanging from his head. Izuku blinks and hesitantly asks, quietly, All Might? The man coughs, spitting blood that drips down his chin afterwards. Oh my God, All Might! Cadden, Druid, quickly! He calls, rushing over to the deflated hero that collapsed to his knees. The horns on his head grow faster than usual, already covered in sprouts that have budding flowers all over them, and his eyes glow a brilliantly bright green. All Might has to helplessly watch the boy approach his sorry excuse of a mangled body, barely able to even breathe, let alone tell him to stay away. He marvels at the glowing eyes and the tall horns though. Didn't he have a telekinesis quirk? He wonders to himself, sinking down on the roof and sitting on his rear by the time the boy reaches him. All Might, are you okay? Izuku asks in a blind panic, looking all over the exposed skin of the man in front of him, looking for any sign of injury. Another cough brings up more blood, but he shakes his head. It's okay. I've had this condition for years now. He pulls up his shirt to reveal an angry, purple scar on his midriff. A villain destroyed one of my lungs and my stomach. Some other intestines had to be removed as well, but I can live with it. To his surprise, the boy looked at him with an angry scowl on his freckled face. This isn't living, this is surviving. Hold on. Izuku says and lays both his hands on the man's side. They begin glowing green, the same light that his eyes emit, and All Might has to bite back a scream of surprise and pain. He clenches his teeth, breathing heavily through the pain that holds up for longer than he's used to. He doesn't know how long it takes, but by the time the boy stops, the sprouts on his horns had wilted, his eyes barely glowed anymore, and his face was covered in sweat. Midoriya, my boy, are you okay? He asks, concerned. He's taken aback at the ease he could breathe with. This was hard, comes the answer, and Izuku plops down to lay on his back, breathing hard. All Might checks his own breath, taking in as much air as he could, noticing that there's a lot more that enters his lung. Also the stinging pain in his side, that was always present at the back of his mind, shoved aside for more important matters to worry about is just gone. He pulls up his shirt, revealing the light, spiderweb-like scar where the big, angry, purple and red one should have been. What did you do? The man asks, looking at the boy that just made his biggest concern basically go away. A few minutes pass before Izuku can catch his breath to speak up. I think I reformed your organs. My quirk, it's the druid form . He gestures at himself before letting his arm fall back down next to him. Can heal. I didn't know to what extent, and I don't think all is well with you again, but I think I got most of it, he explains. Izuku sits up after another few minutes had passed, the wilted buds on his horns beginning to form very small, bright green sprouts again. He raises his hand to pull the foliage off of himself, looking at the wilted mess in his hand with a sad expression. It took so long to grow these, he mutters. Finally, he looks back up at his and Katsuki's idol, noticing him staring. Starting to get nervous, his eyes dart from side to side before he asks, All Might? Tashinori, comes the reply, which has him tilting his head slightly in question. Tashinori Yagi. That's my civilian name. Please call me that while I look like this, the man explains with a sigh. Yagi-san. Izuku tries and startles when he remembers why he attached himself to the hero in the first place. Wait. The slime guy, he calls out, startling Tashinori as well. The man checks his pockets, finally noticing the missing of plastic bottles and with them the criminal. He blanches. He unscrewed one of the caps somehow. It's why I tried stopping you, the teen explains and rushes over to the railing of the rooftop, only swaying a little bit. Tashinori stands up as well, following the boy to the side of the building, looking in the direction they had come from. A distant explosion makes both their heads swivel a little, spotting the cloud of smoke that comes floating out of an alley. Izuku activates his quirk again. Cadden, switch to psychic, he says, making the glowing and the horns disappear again. The hero next to him watches as the boy takes off flying in the direction of the fire before properly realizing what's going on. He muscles up again, jumping after the teen that basically saved his life and is heading into a potential danger. When he arrives, landing on a rooftop that connects to the alley, he sees the boy angrily ripping the sludge they lost earlier off of another teen with his quirk. "You didn't learn last time to not attack kids?" Izuku screams, squashing the criminal with his telekinesis, making him groan. He doesn't stop the pressure on the slime when he kneels down next to the blonde who's coughing up some of the viscous green liquid. "Kaken, are you okay? Are you hurt?" The teen in question raises a hand and slaps it down on Izuku's shoulder. A few deep breaths later, he is able to answer with a short, yet dash before coughing more and continues, "I'm good. Thanks, Izu." All Might decides to land next to them both at that moment, his entrance whipping up enough wind to extinguish the flames that started spreading to the close-by buildings. "Not to worry. I am here now to take the criminal to his rightful place." He calls and offers the boys his hands to help them up. Izuku accepts and pulls his friend up with him by the hand on his shoulder. He also supports the blonde by flinging said arm around his own neck, which the other accepts with a thankful glance before looking up at his idol. "All Might," he breathes. "Indeed, Katsuki Baku." "It is me," he laughs and pats him on his other shoulder. The boy gapes at him but he just laughs. Then the other heroes around finally spring into action, ushering on the civilians and helping the local residents with putting anything out of place back together. The media swarms All Might, trying to get an interview out of him. Medics approach the two teens but Katsuki waves them off, saying he's okay, and Izuku smiles warmly, thanking them for their services. They quickly evade the media, lest they actually start pestering them and keeping them even longer, heading for home. The sun already colors the sky in oranges and red, getting ever closer to the horizon. Izuku is walking closely to Katsuki, should he need help walking again, but he doesn't touch him, knowing full well that he can handle himself and will ask for help should he need it. They are already in their neighborhood when they hear hurried steps coming their way. Shooting around the corner comes a big man, blonde hair windswept and skidding to a halt right in front of them both. "Found you," he calls with his booming voice, surprisingly not catching the attention of any residents nearby. Katsuki looks stunned once more. Izuku just gives a little wave and greets back with a smile. "Hello again, All Might. Midoriya, my boy, I need to thank you properly for aiding me back then. I wanted to offer to train you," he announces, propping his hands on his hips and posing proudly. The teen can't help but stare, temporarily forgetting about his friend. "Train me?" he calls after a moment of silence. All Might laughs. "Yes, of course. I'm assuming you want to be a hero, right?" the man asks with a tilt to his head, the two big strands of hair bouncing once. A dash," Izuku stammers. He gestures wildly between Katsuki, who is looking from Izuku to All Might and back indignantly, and himself, both. "Kaken and I both want to become heroes," he finally finishes after finding his voice. "Not a problem. I can train you both." All Might laughs once more, then leans down towards them and raises a hand as if to tell a secret. "I did take a job as teacher for the upcoming school year, so training you two would be great training for myself as well," he stage whispers. Izuku starts nodding fast, bouncing a bit with the movement and lifting off the ground before Katsuki can pull him back down to the ground by his sleeve, being used to such outbursts. The blonde finally collects his composure to speak up himself. "All Might? Training us himself?" "Of course," he grins, showing his teeth. The expression takes Toshinori by surprise, but he doesn't let them see it. If the friendly, bubbly, and upbeat boy Midoriya is friends with this one, he can't have bad intentions. He nods his head. "Yes, very well. A willing body is easier to form. With this, you will both be prepared for the upcoming UA entrance exam." Izuku and Katsuki look at each other with excited smiles, one more terrifying than the other, and exclaim a chorus of "Yes, All Might." After exchanging phone numbers, the two boys finally make it home, Katsuki getting scolded for getting into danger. The news reporters had put him straight onto live TV while he was struggling with the sludge, while Izuku was hugged half to death for worrying his parents with not arriving home on time. Not sending a message as to why and showing up on TV to save his neighbor and childhood friend from a criminal that escaped All Might twice in the same day, which they wouldn't even have known had he kept his mumbling in check. Both families decided to have a big dinner together to relieve the stress of the day and assure themselves that everyone is unharmed and okay. All Might contacted the teens the next Saturday, ordering them to meet him at Dagoba Beach. It was once a beautiful view, now obstructed by mountains of trash. Broken down cars, kitchen appliances, broken machines in some cases, and a whole lot of stuff that was washed ashore by the currents. The boys already dreaded All Might's words, but eventually he had to say it. "I want you two to clean up this beach." They blanched. "All of it?" they asked in unison. "All of it." All Might answered with a laugh. "You are allowed to use your quirks, as I have arranged this with the local police." At this, both Katsuki and Izuku huff a sigh of relief. The blonde of the two hesitates after a moment, though. "Wait. I can't use my quirk to lift sheet. How am I supposed to get any of this done?" he asks. "Language, young man. And if I am not mistaken, with the recoil from your explosions, it would be better for you to train your actual physical body with carrying these things to the truck at the street." The man explains, and Katsuki can't help but nod. He was right with this anyways. The biggest limiter of his quirk is the recoil of the explosions after all. If he overdoes it, the muscles in his forearms will tear, and if he goes even further, his bones wouldn't hold up either. Izuku's limiters are his points. The form he uses can only do so much to the point value it has. If he can break this limiter just with training, he's uncertain. He voices his concerns to the hero, looking at him for his silence. "All Might, I don't know if I can develop my quirk by just straining it. The way it works is, if I get quests, and I fill the requirements, I receive points that I can put into one of my forms to develop what it can do. Sometimes I get points for my stats, which are more passive abilities. I can raise one stat on each birthday," he explains, as slowly as he can so he doesn't start mumbling. The man looks thoughtful for a long moment, before lighting up. "Young Midoriya, these quests, as you call them, how do you gain them?" he asks. "Oh, they are tasks given to me by other people." Izuku answers easily, already seeing where this is going. "Very well, my boy. I will give you your instructions now. Clear a minimum amount of 1 truckload together with young Bakugo on every scheduled training day. Extra truckloads will get you extra credit. No credit on off days, you need your rest as well. No overtraining." All Might begins, making Izuku's quirk rattle in the back of his mind to produce a quest to properly award the points as per All Might's announcement. Additionally, if you finish cleaning the beach 2 weeks before the deadline, you will gain a high reward. The man finishes and waits for Izuku to confirm twice, alerting the hero and Katsuki that he received the quests. The green-haired teen smiles. "Those are a lot of points. I'm sure by the end of this I can at least lift a car with psychic when I put enough of them into it. Or finally be able to breathe fire instead of just getting it out of my hands. Maybe transform for a day even with druid." Izuku breaks off into mumbling up a storm, a hand at his chin while looking at the sand below him. Katsuki shrugs at the questioning look All Might throws him. "You made him think about his quirk. It's what you get when you let him continue." A quick goodbye between the two blondes leaves Katsuki alone with a mumbling Izuku at the beach. "Leonard, quit your iffing mumbling," he calls, already trudging over to the first of many trash mountains. One that doesn't look like it might collapse once someone pulled something out from it. Izuku snaps out of it with a jolt, scanning his surroundings with a quick swivel of his head. "Where's All Might?" he asks, jogging to catch up with Katsuki. "He left. What did you expect?" comes the answer before a grunt, as the explosive teen lifts a hunk of metal that was lying next to the pile. With a groan, he starts towards the parked truck at the street. "Come on, Izu. Stop standing around and help me. This sheet doesn't throw itself away," he calls over his shoulder. With a sigh for his best friend's potty mouth, Izuku starts working with his psychic form to lighten his load and carry several small things over to the truck. Week after week, the beach clears and the public wonders at the sight. And on the 2 weeks before their deadline, the two teens load up the last truck. With a proud nod, All Might approves of their work and laughs grandly when he reveals that he's going to teach at UA. If Izuku was being honest, he thought as much already. Because what other school would be appropriate for the #1 hero to teach at but UA? This was it. Izuku and Katsuki had trained under All Might for the past few months and together all their lives, basically for this one day. UA's entrance exams. Izuku could barely sleep the night before, only getting some shut-eye when he used Druid to transform into a bunny. He would have preferred a cat, but those are more nocturnal, so that would have been counterproductive. Come morning, his mother wants to wake him up, only finding a dark green bunny with white paws on the pillow, sleeping soundly. She could barely hold back a little chuckle as she walks over to poke at his tiny nose, which twitches in response before the little animal blinks awake. As he glances up at her, he wills the transformation to fade away, and with a puff of light green smoke, he's back in his human form. "Good morning," he says tiredly, rubbing his eyes with the back of his hand. She ruffles his bed hair. "Good morning, Izuku. Are you ready for the exams?" The way he stiffens under her hand makes her frown a bit. "What's wrong?" she asks in concern. He hesitates before answering her. "Let's say I'm nervous? I don't really know. Kaken and I trained basically our whole lives for this, but somehow I feel like I'm not ready." The teen tries explaining. "Oh, Izuku. It's okay. Like you said, you both trained all this time for this. If someone earned it, it's you boys. Also, I want to remind you that you are amazing, Izuku. Never giving up, always give it your all. Isn't that UA's motto as well?" His mother pulls him into a hug, avoiding his overgrown horns. Izuku smiles into his mother's neck. "Yeah, go beyond, plus ultra," he says in his tired voice and without much conviction, but lifting a weakly balled fist along with it anyways. Inko can't help but laugh. "See? I'm sure you can do it, Izuku. You have to believe in yourself a bit more," she says and holds him at arm's length. "Now come on. Get into the bathroom, and when you're done for school, we're having breakfast." RPG gives him a little pop-up that he ignores, because it'll be confirmed with either answer that he can give his mother anyways, tells his Quirk to switch forms and heads for the bathroom. Katsuki wakes up every morning to the sound of his alarm. Today is different though, as he wakes up well before it's able to ring him out of bed. He glances at the clock, noting the time but turning off the alarm and getting up already anyways. He hears his parents speaking in the living room, both having taken an off day for this big event. The blonde takes his weights and starts an early morning workout, getting a few last reps in, but careful not to overdo it, because UA also has a practical exam that he'll be able to use his Quirk for. When he's done with the different exercises, he worked up a little bit of a sweat. The urge to pop some firecrackers in his hands is strong, but he pushes it down in favor of having a bit more peace before his parents, more specifically his mom, know he's already awake. He sneaks into the bathroom, a change of clothes under his arm, and locks the door behind him. The shower would alert them of his presence. And true to form, his mom stands in front of the bathroom with crossed arms when he finally steps out of the door. He glares at her. "What?" She glares back and replies, "That's good morning, brat. Get your butt into the kitchen, Dad made breakfast." Mitsuki all but yells, turning around to disappear into the living room again. With a sigh, he puts away his nightwear, sweaty as it was after all, and struts into the kitchen to find a bowl of rice and, aside from some leftover tamagoyaki from his parents' breakfast, also some veggies and fish. After he wolfed all of it down, he cleans up his dishes. When he had them put away, he walks over to the living room where his parents keep themselves busy with their individual tasks. Even on their day off, both of them had to bring some work home with them. Typical. But he calls out to catch their attention. "I'ma go pick Aizu up for the exams. I'll call when it's over," Katsuki explains as he's already heading for the door. He hears his mother dart after him before he even reaches the step where his shoes are. After a loud goodbye between them, which included more insult than none, his father stuck his head out of the living room to wish him good luck, at which Katsuki could only scoff. "Who needs good luck? We trained for this our whole lives, no way we're losing now," he declares before quickly taking off, lest his mother tries to rope him into another yelling contest. He's almost done drying and putting away the dishes when his mother calls out to him. "Izuku!" He hears her from wherever she is in the house. Yes, Mom? Izuku calls back, laying down the towel he used to go and find her. Inko meets him in the hallway, coming from the front door. Katsuki's here to pick you up, she says as she steps around him to push him forward. He stammers for a moment before he finds the words, "But Mom, the dishes." She laughs and gives him a final, gentle shove. "I'll handle the rest. You go get into Yue, my little hero." When he turns around to look at her, he meets teary eyes. "Oh, Mom," he says as he wraps her in a hug. "I'll call when we're done, okay? I'm counting on you to cheer me on." Izuku tries to cheer her up, barely keeping his own tears at bay. It seems to do the trick as she parts from him, raising her small fists. "I'll always be here to cheer you on. Dad will be home before you as well, so when you come home, we'll have a nice dinner," she exclaims while Izuku put on his bright red high tops. "I'm looking forward to it, Mom. Love you, see you later," he calls over his shoulder as he leaves the house. "Love you too. Take care." Inko waves and looks after the two teens until they round the next corner. In the train, Izuku and Katsuki stand next to each other, holding onto the same bar on different sides. All seats are taken but a few spaces to stand are available, so it isn't as cramped as it could be. The closer they get to the district where Yue is, the more people get on though. Mostly teenagers who are probably also attending the entrance exams, others might just be normal adults on their way to work. Someone with long, black hair catches Izuku's attention out of the corner of his eye, but as he turns to try and see why, they are gone. He shrugs, getting back to minding his own business. Katsuki and him bicker for the rest of the way to the school from the station, catching several eyes with the blonde's colorful language, but paying them no mind. Once they arrive at the big UA gates, Izuku stops in awe. Katsuki notices a few steps later and turns to see what's going on. Snap out of it. Izuku jerks back out of his own mind to look at his childhood friend, and after trying to figure out what had been said, he laughs sheepishly. Sorry, Kaken. I just can't believe we're finally here," he says and starts walking, but trips while doing so. Before Katsuki can react, a girl that was passing Izuku tapped him on the flailing arm, making him stop mid-air in his fall. Taken aback, Izuku can only watch as the girl introduces herself and wishes them best of luck before going up to the entrance of the UA building and disappearing behind the glass doors. "I talked to a girl." Izuku shrieks quietly, and Katsuki, who had stepped up next to him, scoffs. "Had talked? You looked at her like a fish out of water? Hilarious," he teases, jutting his elbow into Izuku's ribs. The greenette looks at him, totally baffled and offended. "Excuse me? You weren't even part of the conversation," he shoots back, finally starting to walk towards the main building as well. Katsuki easily falls into step next to him and continues annoying Izuku with it with his usual evil smirks. The victim of the teasing can only laugh occasionally himself. The situation was ridiculous after all. In front of the room where the written exam would be held, a tall teen with angular eyebrows and glasses approaches them with apparent robotic motions. "Excuse me. You shouldn't irritate your fellow examinees. I ask you to step down," he calls obnoxiously, making chopping motions with his arms to emphasize. Katsuki is immediately ticked off, but barely gets out more than a ch before Izuku butts in. Don't worry. We're childhood friends, he's just teasing me," he explains with all smiles, stepping between the two other boys. The taller one shoves his glasses up his nose and gives them both a skeptical once-over, before nodding. "Alright. I shall believe you. But tone it down a bit, there are other people here that are trying to focus," he says, then turns and, as robotically as before, struts away. At that moment, Izuku notices the pipes jutting out of the calves of the teen but couldn't say anything about it as the staff starts ushering them all into the examining room. After plowing through the written exam, Izuku finds Katsuki waiting in front of the auditorium. "Hey nerd," he greets, falling into step next to him. Izuku smiles. "Hey Kaken. I expect it went well for you?" he asks. With a scoff, the blonde answers, "Of FNG course. Was all easy sheet." He doesn't even ask the green-haired teen how it went, knowing full well that the guy's smarter than himself, even if he wouldn't dare admit that out loud. He'd take that admission with him to his grave. A few steps later he speaks up again. Where are we going anyways? His friend turns to look at him for a moment before watching where he's going again. To the cafeteria. They apparently set up some refreshments and food before the briefing of the practical part. There won't be another break it seems. Izuku explains. Katsuki nods in understanding, both of them falling unusually quiet as they contemplate what they will have to do. After the break, the staff orders the examinees to another auditorium. This one had a different seating organization, allowing for everyone to see the big stage and screen at the other end of the room. For the briefing, Katsuki and Izuku were seated next to each other, unlike the written part. Izuku's nerves make him overthink, and as soon as he sits down, starts mumbling up a storm. Katsuki had to bump him every few minutes so he would break out of it for at least a moment. Soon, a bright blonde man with sunglasses and a speaker around his neck enters the room through a side entrance, his hair in such an updo that Katsuki had to wonder just how much gel and hairspray that had to take every day. Izuku's mumbling picks up in speed when he catches sight of the pro hero and radio host, Present Mike. With a sigh, Katsuki takes Izuku's left hand and puts it over the greenette's mouth, effectively shutting him up, even if he can still almost hear the gears turning in his head. After Present Mike's introduction and the awkward silence that followed, he starts explaining the practical exam in more detail. Apparently, they have to fight robots in multiple different mock cities. Because of course UA has not just one, but multiple whole cities on their property. 3 different robot types will grant their different point values of 1, 2, and 3 points per type and per robot when destroyed. At this, Katsuki has to smirk. He gets to do just what he trained for, blasting villains, even fake 1/robots, into tomorrow. On the screen behind the hero, there's visuals going along with his speech. A 4th silhouette of a robot showing up with no number next to it. The explanation was interrupted by that stuck-up tall guy that wanted to give Katsuki sheet before, but he was shot down quickly as Present Mike went on. The 4th and last robot type was an obstacle. It is meant to distract, so this one is to be ignored with its 0-point value. Izuku was basically vibrating in his seat with excitement and the contained mumbling, lifting off of his chair a little as well. With his legs hooked underneath the seat though, he doesn't fly up more than a few centimeters, so Katsuki doesn't pull him down. Soon, the briefing is finished and they all get split up into their different groups, sadly splitting up the 2 childhood friends as well. They promised each other to wreck the place, coming out on first respectively, a challenge which Katsuki and RPG gladly accept. In front of gigantic gates, they might be taller than the UA barrier. Izuku could only look over all the other teens that were trying to get into UA's hero course. He spots the girl from this morning, the one that saved him from falling when he didn't catch himself with psychic. He really would have to get used to activating his quirk without actively thinking about it. It's part of him. This shouldn't be as hard as it was. Deciding that she deserves a proper thanks, he starts on his way over to her, only to be stopped by the tall boy from earlier, the stern one with the glasses. He pushes said glasses up his nose as he regards Izuku with a disapproving frown. Did you want to distract your fellow examinees? He asks. Izuku is taken aback, looking up to meet the guy's gaze as he answers, she helped me this morning, kept me from tripping. I didn't give her proper thanks so I wanted to make up for that. The eyes behind the glasses squint at him but after a moment, he nods and steps down, letting Izuku pass. He doesn't reach the girl though because on the way there, Present Mike's voice drowns all sounds around them out with a loud "guh." Reflexively, Izuku runs into the city, giving himself a little boost with psychic. Nobody follows him for a moment, before the voice hero yells at them that, in real life there is no countdown. Izuku lifts up a robot and slams it into another, effectively smashing both of them and going on to another one, lifting that one up and letting it fall to the ground, letting gravity do his work for him. 5 points. His quirk tells him, also providing a little counter in his vision. He smiles, thanking the voice under his breath as he runs down an alley to get to a different big street where no other teens are wrecking the bots before him. By the time Present Mike announces half of the time to be over, his little counter says 47 points. What do you think, Cadden? That should be enough to get in, right? He wonders, breathing hard from running around so much. After analyzing the other examinees, Your point value seems to be unmatched so far. The voice answers politely. He nods and starts towards where he hears someone cursing. He finds a purple-haired, really tired-looking teen, trying to get the drop on a three-pointer. Izuku stops it in place and the other boy finally gets his hand under a hidden panel, making the robot drop. His point counter doesn't go up and he hopes the judges see it the same way. "Are you okay?" he asks. Tired, indigo eyes meet his green ones, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah? Thanks I guess." Izuku approaches the boy, seeing scrapes and bruises on him when he gets closer. "You're hurt," he says, stopping in front of him. He inspects his arms, wincing a bit as he notices the state of them. "I guess fist-fighting with robots made of metal isn't such a great idea after all. But my quirk isn't useful for this stuff," he explains. Izuku perks up. "Oh, what is your quirk then?" he asks excitedly, but toning down at the sad look that passes over his conversation partner's face. "I can brainwash people. When they answer a question I ask," comes the hesitant answer. Apparently surprising the purple-haired teen, Izuku lights up and starts to rattle through all the possibilities that quirk could offer, theorizing and asking questions all at once. At the wave of two hands back and forth, Izuku slows down. "And Beto, you need help with them?" he finishes. After a moment of baffled silence, all the other teen says is, "What? I asked if you could use some help? You know, have someone wreck them for you under your quirk." Izuku explains. The look he gets is nothing short of amazement, but after a moment of contemplation, he gets a nod as answer. "Okay." Izuku smiles. "Kaden, switch to warrior please," he commands, growing and bulking up to about the size of his new friend. His mouth hangs open as he watches the transformation. Izuku smiles once more, summoning twin broadswords -1 in each hand, and jars his head at a different alley. "Wanna go and get some points? Oh, and by the way, my name is Izuku." "Hitoshi," comes the perplexed answer, before he's able to snap out of it. "What's your favorite color?" he asks. "Red," answers Izuku, his eyes glossing over. "Let's go get me some points," Hitoshi orders, making Izuku turn and run to where he jerked his head before, apparently knowing that there are untouched robots there. Izuku quickly rounds the corners, getting out of Hitoshi's sight almost immediately. As soon as he catches up, the teen is slashing through the robots without even breaking a sweat, the swords cutting through metal plating and wiring with little effort. Once all robots in the little plaza are wrecked and before Izuku can take off once more, he stops his control and with it Izuku's rampage. The greenette turns, looking at him questioningly. "Those are more than enough. Maybe I can grab some more on my own, but thanks for these." Hitoshi explains and Izuku approaches him once more. "Oh, no problem. Let me get those wounds for you though, this way you can fight better," he explains and commands his quirk again. "Kaden, switch to druid." Hitoshi watches in amazement as the other teen changes again, this time growing horns with plants on them and his eyes starting to glow. "Okay, this is way too cool. What the heck is your quirk?" he asks as the boy takes his arm and the hands start glowing. "Green. It's called RPG. Basically, I can switch between 4 forms that can all control different things. 2 of them are stronger versions of my parents' quirks, and warrior and druid are their own things," he explains. Hitoshi watches as the wounds on his arms close and the pain in his limbs subsides. Izuku's hands stop glowing and he lets go of the purple-haired teen's arm. And that's just a very short rundown of the most basic info. He finishes as he picks some wilted leaves from his horns, inspects them and lets them fall to the ground. "I'll see if I can help anyone else, if you don't need me anymore." "Yeah, sure. You do. Maybe we'll see each other again when we both get in." Hitoshi answers as Izuku turns and jogs towards a bigger commotion. Present Mike announces the last minute of the practical exam right as there's a resounding boom and cracks from falling concrete on the main entrance's road. From the alley, Izuku can see teens running for the exit, and as soon as he emerges onto the sidewalk from between the houses, he finds out why. A gigantic robot, taller than the biggest building in the street, is plowing its way towards the students, crushing the falling debris under its continuous tracks. Izuku already turns to run along with everyone else when he hears a whimper. With a violent swivel of his head, almost giving himself whiplash, he turns and immediately searches for the source of the noise. When he hears it again, he can make out a tiny help, also spotting the person it's coming from. It's the girl from this morning, the one that made him float. Without thinking, he's already rushing over to her, commanding his quirk, Kedden, psychic, fast. As soon as he feels it taking place in his mind, he already reaches for the boulder burying the girl's leg. He has to put quite some effort behind it, but he's able to lift the dmed thing, pulling the girl out by her arms. He lets go of the boulder and instead carries her with psychic to lessen the jostle of her leg that looks like it was completely flattened, only holding on by some of the squishy tissue of flesh and skin. He winces, the blood flooding out of her legs splattering on the ground, leaving a bloody trail behind them. Izuku is about halfway back to the entrance as a loud bell rings and the robot behind him, that was still going even after crushing the boulder from before, finally stops. He collapses to his knees, still holding her up so her leg doesn't get more irritated. Carefully setting her down, he checks her over for more injuries, noticing her halfway closed eyes. "You're conscious. Stay with me. I'm Izuku," he says. Under his breath, he quickly makes his quirk change back to druid. He lays his hands on the crushed leg, cringing at the blood instantly soaking his hands as they light up bright green. He tends to the ripped blood vessels and nerves first of all, which takes up most of the rest of his energy. He feels the sprouts on his horns wilt and begs his quirk to hold up some more, using the sparse surrounding energy as well as his last reserves to rearrange all the crushed bone, connecting muscle tissue and flesh before the glowing stops on its own. No, come on Kedden, I'm not done yet. Come on just a bit more, he begs desperately, grabbing onto the exposed muscle a little bit tighter and squeezing his eyes shut in concentration. He feels around for more energy and pushes all of it forwards, healing up the last bit of the girl's leg and closing up the skin, returning it basically to a point where it was never even crushed. The relief came with a wave of dizziness and the darkness of him falling unconscious. When he wakes up, it's to a white ceiling, illuminated by the orange hue of the setting sun. He groans, his head hurt, and when he raises his hand to see if there were sprouts on his horns again, he didn't feel anything there. "Izuku," he hears a familiar voice call his name. He turns his head slowly, spotting deep red eyes and a mop of blonde hair before Katsuki crashes into him in a hug. "Don't scare me like that. What did you do?" he says, untangling himself from his friend to look him in the dimly glowing eyes. "What happened? Where am I?" Izuku asks instead of answering, trying to push himself up a bit to properly look at Katsuki. "You're in the infirmary of UA," says an old, scratchy voice. Izuku looks over to the other side of his bed and there he spots a small, old woman in a doctor's gown, the pin that holds her hair in a bun shaped like a syringe. Chio Shizenji, recovery girl. Izuku breathes, having a small breakdown, because that's the recovery girl. The woman nods and steps up to his bed. "You exhausted your quirk so much, your horns fell out. I kept them over there dash," she points at something behind a curtain, "in case you wanted them back." My horns?" he repeats, grabbing his head again, just to find that yes, his horns are indeed gone. "Kedden?" Izuku asks the air. He feels his quirk slowly coming to the front of his mind, taking a moment to answer, which was already very concerning dash. "Good morning, Izuku," the voice says in his mind. He breathes a sigh of relief before answering, "It's evening, Kedden. The sun is setting. What happened to Druid?" Status, energy completely drained. Replenishing of reserve slowed down due to overexerting the use. Catalyst will take time to grow back, but it will do so more strongly. Healing and transforming disabled until further notice. His quirk replies. Izuku deflates, sagging in his spot on the bed. "Will I recharge while using the other forms?" he asks. "Your other forms, warrior, psychic, and magus, do not have the ability to absorb the surrounding energy." Kedden answers. He sighs, "So that's a no." "Okay then." While Izuku was speaking, Recovery Girl pulled Katsuki to the side. "I haven't been able to find any injuries on him. Who is he talking to?" she asks the blonde. He rolls his eyes. "He's talking with Is Quirk? Looks like it's sentient or some sheet. Katsuki answers. The nurse's eyebrows shoot upwards, closer to her hairline. With his quirk? It doesn't say anything about that in his registry, she says, walking over to the PC, the boy following closely. And, fair enough, in his registry it doesn't say anything about the fact that he can hold proper conversations with his quirk. Maybe the doctor who registered it thought it was just a kid thing with imaginary friends or something. I will update it now, so this misunderstanding won't happen again. Chio says. Katsuki gives a grunt of acknowledgement before walking back over to Izuku's bed, waiting for him to finish his conversation before speaking up. Izuku wouldn't notice him talking before then anyways. Why do you look so down? The blonde asks. Izuku winces a bit, but starts explaining what his quirk had reported. A scowl made its way on Katsuki's face by the time he finishes. So you'll have to stay like this until your horns grow back on their own? He asks. Izuku shrugs, seems like it. 10 years of switching through them all had my horns become really tall. I wonder how long it's going to take them to regrow like that. If they ever get back to that size, Kadin said that they'll regrow stronger. I don't really know what that means for their size though. At this point, Izuku remembers the promise he made to his parents. And Katsuki's. But he can't get more than a breath in before Katsuki turns to him and starts talking. What happened in your DMN center? You didn't answer before. That gigantic zero-pointer buried a girl under some pieces of a house it crushed. One of the boulders flattened her leg. Katsuki cringes in sympathetic pain, seeing as he had a few broken bones in his past but fortunately never something so serious. So I shoved it off of her, ran out of the thing's range, and after it was stopped fixed up her leg. Katsuki eyes him after that little explanation, skeptically tilting one eyebrow up. And you passed out and lost your horns. Just a leg? He asks, pointedly raising an eyebrow. Izuku shrugs. I might have healed someone a few months ago, which was taxing and used up some of the energy I stored since I got RPG. And I helped someone while in the exam. And I might have switched back and forth a few times during the practical too. He recounts, getting quieter and quieter when he notices how reckless he had been. But if he had to do it again, he would. His friend just looks at him tiredly, heaving a deep sigh in exasperation. You're too much of a hero, seriously. Think of your own safety for a change, he says. Izuku shrugs and perks up, remembering what he wanted to say before. Oh, Kaken. What's with our parents? He asks quickly. Don't worry. I called them. Auntie wasn't very happy about you being here in the infirmary but understands exhaustion well. So she said I should stay with you so we can get home together once you get up. Katsuki answers. And continues, can you stand? The green-haired teen nods and scoots over to the side of the bed, hanging his feet for a moment and sitting up fully. He feels a bit dizzy but it's not disorienting, so he braces himself on the side of the bed and gets to his feet. As soon as they get home, the Bakugas were over at the Midoriya residence. Izuku was crushed in a hug of his mother. He pats her back and cries along with her when her tears start. Hisashi fondly smiles at them from the stove, warming up the meal the four adults had before for their two boys. Mitsuki in the meantime berates Katsuki for one reason or another, before Masaru pats him on the shoulder and thanks him for looking out for Izuku. The blonde teen can only scoff, answering, the nerd is too dense to look out for himself, someone has to. Both Katsuki and Izuku had dinner together that night, their parents pleasantly talking amongst themselves in the living room. They didn't stop training the following weeks, and when the letters of UA arrive, they meet up in Katsuki's bedroom to open their letters together. First one is Katsuki, because he just can't wait any longer. A hologram of All Might pops out of the small metal disc that was contained in the envelope. I am here. As a hologram. Young Bakugu, you had the highest score in your testing center, calling 85 villain points your own. There also was a hidden scoring system for rescue points. Here you earned 5 points, totaling up at 90 points. Young Bakugu, I'll say it right now, congratulations for passing the exams. UA welcomes you for the coming school year. And with this, the hologram blips out. Izuku is almost literally vibrating in his seat, unbelievably happy for his childhood friend. The smug smirk on Katsuki's face is more than expected, but Izuku can see the proud puff of his chest, telling him that the blonde is at least just as hyped as him. Ripping his own envelope open, his disc falls out as well and reveals another hologram of All Might. I am here. As a hologram. Izuku snorts. You, young Midoriya, broke my high score on the entrance exam. Now, don't get me wrong, the 47 villain points are a solid count and you only used half the exam's time looking for and destroying the robots. 47 points would barely get you into the hero course, but we had a hidden scoring system in place for rescue points, or in your case also support points. The way you helped your fellow examinees, granting one of them to control you so he could get into UA with a non-destructive quirk and helping him even beyond that in fixing up his injuries. Not to forget you saving that girl from being crushed under the zero-pointer and saving her leg. Young Midoriya, your hidden score of 80 points totals you up to 127 points, making you rank in first place and breaking my record of 90 plus 32 points. To finish this announcement, I welcome you to your Hero Academy, young Midoriya. The excited jitters had long since stopped, now replaced with a stunned, an odd silence. The two teens eye each other and start cheering at the same time. They jump to their feet, fist-pumping the hair and whooping so loud, Mitsuki barges into the room, insult on her lips, but she stops when she sees the exited boys cheering at each other. I expect you both got in? She asks with a knowing smirk. Izuku broke All Might's FE record. Katsuki informs rather loudly. At this, Mitsuki's mouth hangs open and she retreats uncharacteristically quiet. That same day, they threw a feast at the Bakuga's house with both families celebrating their children and spoiling them until late at night. The two green-haired individuals might have cried the whole evening, but nobody can judge them for it. It's been a big day after all. On their first day of school, Katsuki and Izuku excitedly make their way to UA. Way too early, the trains and sidewalks were virtually empty, safe for a few pedestrians and early workers or people that are on their way home from a night shift. Being as excited and early as they were, nobody was in their class when they arrived at the huge door labeled 1A. What? Nobody's here yet? Katsuki complains while going to the teacher's desk to see the seating arrangement. Izuku follows him, standing on the opposite side of the table. Well, we saw that nobody was on the train, we are just that early, he amends. The blonde shrugs and nods over to the windows. Whatever. Come on, our seats are over there. The teens walk up to their respective desks, Izuku behind Katsuki, and plop down into their seats. Nonchalantly, Katsuki props his feet up onto his table, tilting his chair backwards to basically lay down. His head almost on top of Izuku's desk tempts the younger of the two to bury his hands in the soft blonde mess. A low growl rips from Katsuki's throat as a threat, but Izuku can't do more than laugh and continue. It's your own fault, when you lay down like this. I couldn't reach if you sat properly. A quick click of his tongue is all the answer Izuku gets before the door slams open to reveal a certain familiar teen. Tall build, angular eyebrows, glasses, that's the guy from the entrance exams. He seems to hesitate for a moment before speed walking over to Katsuki's desk and waving his arms in a chopping motion. You shouldn't disrespect your upperclassmen and the makers of this desk like this. Put your feet down, he calls. Katsuki looks at him, dumbfounded that he was spoken to like this. What are you even saying? Get off my butt, Four Eyes. You shouldn't swear. It is unbecoming of a hero in training to use such language, says the tall teen, not letting up. Before Katsuki can break out one of his curse tirades, Izuku butts in, good morning. I don't believe we introduced ourselves when we met last time. I'm Izuku Midoriya, and this guy here is my friend Katsuki Bakugo. Pleased to meet you. Seemingly just noticing the green-haired teen behind this offender, the teen perks up, shoves his glasses up. His nose and bows. I am truly sorry for not introducing myself earlier. My name is Tenya Ida. During this exchange, more students trickle in. A tall, black-haired girl, a girl with long and dark green hair that's tied into a bow, a bright blonde boy with a big belt buckle and a certain purple-haired boy with eye bags the size of which shouldn't be on a teenager's face. They all pass by the teacher's desk and find their seats, the tired boy finding his place behind Izuku. When Tenya finally leaves them alone to find his own seat, Izuku feels a tap on his shoulder. He turns halfway and breaks from a confused look into a big smile. Hitoshi. You got in, he exclaims, turning in his chair to properly look at the other boy. A nod is his answer, accompanied by a, wouldn't have been without you. Thanks again, man. Izuku shakes off the thanks. Oh, don't. People like you should get a fair chance at these exams too. Fighting robots isn't fair for quirks like yours. What is his quirk? Comes the curious question of Katsuki, who had stood up to stand between the two. Oh, Kaken, his quirk is so cool. It's brainwashing. Anyone who answers a question of his is caught in it. Izuku happily explains, oblivious to the cringe of the boy in question. Katsuki regards him for a moment. I guess that's not useless. Katsuki Bakugu. He introduces and holds out a hand. Hitoshi Shinso. Thanks, I guess. Comes the rather awkward reply as Hitoshi takes the blonde's hand to shake it once. Izuku interrupts before his childhood friend can make the tired teen any more uncomfortable. Kaken doesn't mean it like that. He hasn't cursed at you yet, so I think he likes you. Or at least your quirk. Oh, shut up, Izuku. You befriend just any extra anyways, so I don't need to play nice, says the angry blonde, stomping back to his own chair. The brunette smiles at Hitoshi reassuringly, as he speaks up again. What did he mean by that? Oh, Kaken is just a big grump. Not. R2. He calls people extras because he's real bad at remembering names. So don't take offense when he gives you a mean nickname. That's just how he is. Izuku explains, a huff from Katsuki punctuating the whole thing. Hitoshi cracks a small smile. You guys know each other, huh? Where Izuku nods and answers, yeah, basically our whole lives. We're neighbors. I do the socializing for both of us. Kaken was really bossy as a kid, he says and glances over his shoulder with a smirk that is met with a familiar scowl. A shriek from the door makes every head in the room turn towards it. The brunette girl with her short bob cut has the decency to blush at the attention but bounds over to Izuku a moment later. It's you. Izuku, right? She asks as soon as she stands at his desk, right in front of him. He stammers for a moment before finding his voice. Yes, Izuku Midoriya. You're the girl from the entrance exam. How are you? I am very okay, thanks to you. Are your horns okay? Just fell off like that when you collapsed. The brunette tilts her head to try and get a better look at his head. Oh, my horns. Yeah, they will grow back. It'll take some time to collect that much energy again, so I don't expect them to be this tall again soon, he explains. Only my druid form can collect that energy, that's why I kept it since that day. They already started, see? Izuku finishes as he tilts his head down and points at the little, dark gray horns that barely poke over his mop of unruly hair. She nods as an answer and jolts as a thought strikes her. Oh, I haven't even introduced myself. I'm Ochako Uraraka. Thanks so much for saving me. So it was Round Cheeks who your reckless heroism needed to save? What even happened at your exam center, Aizu? Katsuki interrupts. Be nice, Kaken. It was her that was buried because of the 0-pointer. Izuku explains. Ochako winces. Yeah, I'd like to not remember all that too often. The pain of being stuck under that boulder was bad enough, but having it come back together the way it did? I don't wish it upon anyone. I'm sorry. I don't think Druid is capable of anesthesia. On top of that, I needed you to stay awake, so I could make sure you hadn't lost too much blood. Izuku trails off. More people had come into the classroom and suddenly, Izuku is crowded by some of his new classmates who listened in on them. A blonde guy with a black lightning bolt in his hair on the left side of his head speaks up first. Is she your girlfriend? At which Izuku blushes, but is unable to answer because the next one speaks up. Yo, you saved her from the massive thing? That's so manly, dude, says a grinning boy with spiky red hair and shark teeth. A pink girl with equally as pink hair and small, yellow horns gets real close before talking. What's your quirk? You have horns too, she exclaims when she spots the small protrusions between Izuku's green locks. Before he can properly react, let alone answer the questions asked, a bright yellow caterpillar enters the room. Upright. All attention snapping over to it by one student after the other, the room gradually falls silent. Then, the face of a man reveals itself. The now revealed sleeping bag then slowly unzips and out steps a black-haired, scruffy-looking man that looks like he might be Shinso's dad. That took you all 20 seconds to quiet down. Way too long. You are here to become heroes, not slack off. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. He produces a stack of sports uniforms from his sleeping bag. Put these on and meet me at the track field in 15 minutes. Whoever is late will be expelled. The man finishes and leaves the room. Izuku can't help but stare at where the man just disappeared. Wasn't that the owner of that kitty? What? He's startled out of his thoughts by a slap on his shoulder from Katsuki, who growls, "Hurry up, nerd," before following the other students to pick a uniform and continue to the changing rooms. On their way there, the pink girl from earlier bounces up to Izuku's side that isn't occupied by Katsuki. "Hey Midoriya. You know that guy from somewhere?" she asks, pointing at a scowling Katsuki who glares at her before pointedly looking away to ignore her. "Kaken and I have been friends since forever. We're neighbors," he answers and bumps his shoulder against said blonde's arm, at which the other teen relaxes a bit. "Amina Ishido, by the way. Wanna be horn buddies with Kiri and me?" she asks, pointing at her own yellow, curled horns. After she said this, the redhead from before appears at her opposite side, pointing at his styled hair, two horn-like spikes poking straight up from his forehead. He looks between them sheepishly, "But I only have horns in one of my forms though." Izuku replies. "Forms?" The two ask in unison. "You see, at the moment I'm using my druid form. I can heal and transform into animals I touched in the past. There's also warrior, where I get stronger and can summon weapons at will, also having an easier time learning to use them. Then there's psychic, which is a stronger version of my mom's quirk. I can lift things and move them around, but it's limited to a certain weight. The last one is magus. That one is a stronger version of my dad's quirk where I can summon fire at will and manipulate its heat and other properties." Izuku rattles down, trying to keep it as simple as possible. The scowl at the mention of fire from a certain dual-themed teen goes unnoticed by the little group. "Why can you do all that stuff? That's way too powerful, man. So unfair," complains the blonde with a black lightning bolt in his hair. Izuku stammers for a moment. I mean it's my quirk? RPG lets me put points I get from quests into the different forms and stuff? I'm sorry you're... Oh, I'm rude, sorry. The name's Denki Kaminari. I produce electricity. He answers, offering his hand across Ishido and Kiri's chests. "Izuku Midoriya," comes the shy answer with a shake of the offered hand. Just a short moment later, after more introductions they all arrive at the changing rooms, where the boys and girls split up into their respective halls. Without struggle, everyone finds a locker and they all get changed quickly, trickling out into the field where their teacher is already waiting. The last few join the rest, shortly before Aizawa looks up from his phone. "Way too close. You need to get faster with stuff like this," the teacher says in a monotone voice. He regards the class with a look that has them all tense up. "Today we're doing a physical assessment." "But what about orientation? The entrance ceremony?" Ochako asks, earning some surprised looks from her new classmates and a bored one from their teacher. "Yua doesn't follow mundane routines like that. School traditions here are very non-restrictive, which also applies to how teachers run their classes. Ceremonies and orientation are irrational," he explains and lets his gaze wander over the students once more. "Bakugu." "Aizawa calls," said blonde steps closer as the man continues. "You scored the most villain points in the entrance exams. How far could you throw a softball in middle school?" 75 meters, answers the blonde. "You'll do it again. But today, you use your quirk for it," he says and hands the teen a ball. "As long as you don't step out of the ring, everything goes. Throw it as far as you can." Katsuki weighs the ball in his hand. It's a bit heavier than the ball they threw in middle school. Its material looks very different as well, probably fireproof to accommodate for the destructive powers of several students. He rolls his shoulder a few times in preparation and rears his arm back a moment later. With a big arch of his hand, he throws the ball and blasts it off with a shout and a big explosion. The ball disappears beyond the tree-line and Aizawa regards his phone, before nodding in approval and turning the device for the rest of the class to see. It reads 768.3 meters. A few teens excitedly start chatting, but as soon as their teacher catches the word fun out of the mix, he shoots them a glare. Oh, you think this will be fun? Fine, the one who places last will be expelled. Let's see how much fun you'll be having, he threatens. On the first day? You can't do that, complains the electric quirk user, Kaminari. UA is notorious for allowing its teachers their own teaching styles. Last place is expelled. Now get to it. Izawa all but growls. First is the 50-meter dash. Izuku switches to psychic for this test, surprising most of his classmates when he flings himself across the field in all but 3 seconds flat. With this, he beat Ida, who ran the distance in 3:04 seconds. Bakugo blasts himself across the finish line, making 4th place right behind the teen with dual-colored hair who slid across the ground on a thin layer of ice. For the grip strength test, the greenette turns to warrior, startling the people around him with his little growth spurt, but reassuring them that it's temporary. He comes in second to Shoji, the tall, very muscular teen with multiple arms who scored 540 kilograms. Izuku got 500 kilograms. For the standing long jump, Izuku simply floated over the sand pit using psychic, getting 1st place once more. Katsuki came in second, being able to hold himself in the air with controlled bursts. He has his limit though, and decides to not stay airborne like his friend. For the repeated sidesteps, he uses warrior once more, not being as agile as in druid, but overall stronger and faster. He figured it'd be the most fitting form. He came in second, being a few steps behind the quiet teen with red and white hair from earlier. So maybe that form wasn't the best for this task. He stayed like this for the distance run as well, this time coming in second to Ida, who is basically made for running with his engines. Katsuki was a few seconds behind him, boosting himself with smaller explosions that wouldn't hurt him before he's over the finish line. Then it was time for the slower activities, giving them all a little break. First, the seated toe touch, where Izuku used druid, being more flexible than in his other forms. Him and a green-haired girl that looked a bit like a frog with her posture and the tongue poking out between her lips tied in 1st place. Right behind them was the pink girl from earlier, Ashido, and then the tall girl with long black hair. For the sit-ups, Izuku decided to go with warrior, again, beating the dual-colored boy but coming short to Katsuki and the multiple-armed teen. The final test was the ball throw. Ochako made all of them gawk when she sent the little object into orbit and getting a infinity on Aizawa's meter. Izuku went with psychic for this one, carrying the ball away and making the number for his score climb and climb. At 3 kilometers, the tired teacher speaks up. Okay, I get it. Bring it back, please, he says and marks Izuku down in 2nd place. Katsuki scored a little bit lower this time, as he used his quirk quite a lot today. He gets his first score marked down. Everyone collapses into a heap on the track when Aizawa calls them to evaluate their test results. A leaderboard gets projected into the air by his phone, declaring Izuku in 1st place with a big gap of points to the next placements, which are Katsuki in 2nd and Ida in 3rd. What? Why is he so far ahead of us all? How overpowered is that guy? Yells the electric boy, Kaminari. He's somewhere in the lower middle field of the board. Aizawa smirks evilly at his class. With hard training, you might get this far as well. Then he notices a distraught-looking Shinso. Nobody is expelled, by the way. It was a logical ruse to get you to give it your all. He explains and turns to walk away. The incredulous calls of the teenagers makes him smile into his scarf. This year is going to be fun. He calls over his shoulder, "Go change, get your syllabus from the classroom and go home. Early tomorrow morning, we'll start this year for real," and waves one of his hands in the air until he rounds the closest corner. After having done what their teacher told them to do, the class disperses into small groups on their way to the entrance gates of the school. Izuku and Katsuki are accompanied by Ochako, Ida, Ashido, Kirishima, and Kaminari. The group is on their way to the train station. The redhead of the group speaks up, say, Midoriya, seeing you change during the tests was so manly, but what the hell is your quirk, man? Sheepishly, the greenette answers, well, I basically have 4 forms but I only used 3 today. I covered the basics on our way to the changing room, right? He gets a collective nod, safe for Katsuki who just mopes, watching where he's going and looking as if he's ignoring them but really paying attention to see that Izuku isn't catching too many extras he will stupidly sacrifice himself for in the future. So I think my quirk is equal parts transformation and emitter-based? Like, I can't really turn it off, I'm always in one of my forms, so I guess there's some mutant as well maybe? Especially when I use druid, with the horns and the glowing eyes and such. Glowing eyes? Ashido asks, surprised because that's a less noticeable trait in the daytime. Even ignoring the fact of Izuku's low energy levels. He shrugs, I lost my horns after the entrance exam, I overexerted my energy conversion so they basically broke? Like, the horns are what power my druid form and give me energy to heal and transform in the first place. Over time, they grow and start sprouting plants that show my energy levels and signal how much energy surrounds me. To get them as tall as they were, it took a long time over the past 10 years. Oh, and the more energy I store, apparently the brighter my eyes glow? So it's actually not too confusing that they are really dim recently. A hum comes from Ochako, so, can you show us? The glowing I mean. You're not in Druid right now, right? Izuku nods, I haven't changed since the last test, so I'm still using Psychic, he says and floats off of the ground for a second to emphasize. It gets really tiring, changing back and forth so often. But I really should go back to Druid, so my horns can continue to grow. The teen thinks out loud and nods to himself. Cadden, switch back to Druid, please, he commands. The group of new classmates around him gape in awe at his small horns growing among his green locks. The subtle glow of his eyes goes unnoticed due to the sun illuminating his face. Do you need to speak these commands out loud? Ida asks as they all continue on their way. Izuku shrugs, let's say I haven't tried not to. Thinking of, I always speak to Cadden out loud as well. Has creeped out multiple people over the past, I guess I should try being more quiet. Cadden? Ashido asks. It's what I've named my quirk's voice in my head, he adds. He gets a few confused looks, growing more shy by the second that nobody says anything. Get over yourselves, extras. Izuku's quirk is way too powerful to just be a normal but thing like yours. Katsuki growls from the front of the group. An offended, hey, from the second blonde of the group and a, not cool man, from the redhead later, he speaks up once more. Oh shut up. You know I'm right. Be nice, Kaken. It's unusual to have a sentient quirk. Izuku amends. Ochako perks up, oh actually. There's another guy in our class who seems to have a sentient quirk. She says excitedly, the surprise from earlier forgotten. Really? Who is it? Izuku wonders, going through the new faces in his head to try and figure it out, as the girl speaks up again. I don't recall his name. Seems to be a bit shy maybe? He has the head of a bird though, she says. Tokoyami? Izuku concludes. Ochako hums, is that his name? I don't remember him talking to you. Blushing, Izuku rubs his neck. Well, I saw it on the seating plan. Before anyone can comment on this, they arrive at the train station, where Ida, Kaminari and Ochako have to split off for a different train that was about to leave already. Ashido, Kirishima, Izuku and Katsuki meanwhile made their way to their platform to wait together for the train to arrive. Apparently, Ashido and Kirishima, or Mina and Ijiro, have known each other since grade school, also having shared a class in middle school. They call each other horn buddies since Ijiro started styling his hair in this particular way, wanting to get people to stop pestering her about her mutation-type quirk. Izuku shares his basic childhood story and that he has been friends with Kaken for as long as he can remember. Ijiro has to suppress a laugh that Mina just bursts out at the origin story of that particular nickname. Katsuki accepts his fate and allows the two extras to call him like that, but only when they are in this group constellation. Otherwise he'd kill them. They don't take his threat too seriously, he was grinning after all. But they wouldn't abuse the nickname to stay on his good side dash. When the train arrives, the four get on together and share a 4-seat booth. They bicker and chat the whole way until Ijiro and Mina have to get off at their stop. Everyone wishes each other a nice evening and they agree on meeting in the train next morning as well. Begrudgingly, Katsuki accepts to take the later train the next day. For Izuku, he thought. The evening comes to a close with the two friends parting at Izuku's front door, wishing each other a good night. The next morning comes and with it the excitement of the very first proper day of school at UA. Izuku and Katsuki are chatting on their way to the train station and while waiting to arrive at Mina and Ijiro's stop. Before arriving at the school, the little group grows with Ochako and Tenya also joining them on their way. When they all arrive, some other classmates already took their places. Namely Hitoshi, Fumikage, and two girls, the tall, black-haired one and the one with the frog-like quirk. Remembering the topic of yesterday, Izuku splits off of the group and walks over to Fumicage's table, stopping in front of with a little wave of his hand. "Hey, I'm Izuku Midoriya." The raven-headed teen looks up at him, silently regarding him with a critical eye before speaking up. "Good day, Midoriya. My name is Fumikage Tokoyami. Pleased to make your acquaintance." Not missing a beat, even in the confusion of this way too formal greeting, the greenette asks, "I heard your quirk is sentient, is that right?" Blinking, Fumikage slowly nods, "Indeed. Dark Shadow is a demon bound to my body. He can act on his own and might even overwhelm me in the dark, so I prefer only using him in the daytime." Hooked, Izuku's eyes light up. "That's such a cool quirk though. Imagine what you could do when you learn to control him properly." Fumikage doesn't look convinced with the cringe he's playing off. I guess so? It's complicated when your quirk has a mind of its own," he answers less dramatically. "Oh, my quirk is sentient as well." Izuku perks up, though nobody but me can hear them. "I call them Kadon," he smiles. "Kadon?" questions the other teen. Izuku sheepishly rubs his neck. "Well, I named them when I was 5 and the name stuck. I left out the middle character of Katsudon because Katsu would have been too close to Kaken's name." He explains with a JRK of his thumb over his shoulder to where Katsuki sat down in his chair, pointedly ignoring the 4 other teens who had accumulated around his table, trying and failing to get him to talk to them. Mina, Ijiro, Denki and a plain-looking, black-haired guy with weird-looking elbows dash. With another slow nod, the raven continues, "What does your quirk do?" "I can transform, basically. Right now I'm using the form I call Druid." "Oh, the names of my forms were decided by Kadon by the way. I didn't change them. I don't even know if I could." Izuku happily explains, "Druid can let me heal wounds and sicknesses depending on how much energy I've stored, or I can shapeshift into any animal I've touched in the past. It even differentiates between breeds, like different dogs and cats. So a person blessed by the light. I am honored." Fumikage throws in. Taken aback, Izuku blinks. "Oh, actually it's just nature's energy, so I don't think it depends on day or night." Heavy steps in the hallway interrupt any other conversation going on. "I am Dash," calls a boisterous voice, before the door clatters open, revealing a leaning All Might, coming through the door like a normal person. Several surprised shouts echo through the class as the number 1 hero enters the room, finding his place behind the teacher's desk. He announces their first hero training, battle trials in bold writing on a card that looks tiny in his massive hands. All Might gestures to the back wall of the room where, as if on command, drawers pop out with numbers on them. The numbers on the cases are assigned to your seat numbers. "Get your costumes, change and meet me at ground beta once you are done," the man calls and bolts out of the classroom, leaving behind nothing but amazed teenagers and a dust cloud. Chatter breaks out as all students mill over the costume cases, picking out their numbers and dispersing into the hallway. Once they are all gathered in their respective changing rooms, everyone gets out their costumes to change into. Izuku's costume consists of a dark green, almost black jumpsuit with highlighting lines that run down his front and back and also one broad line down the outside of each arm. He tests the feature he asked the support department to install before getting into the jumpsuit first, making said lines light up in 4 different colors: purple, red, green, and yellow. Satisfied with his little test run, he sticks his legs into the pants and pulls the rest of the suit over his shoulders and arms, closing it by the zipper that runs down the center of his chest. Izuku stretches a bit, getting used to the feeling of his design. The support department line the inside. That's really considerate, thinks. Glancing down at his chest, he can see the 4 coin-sized buttons, each in one of the aforementioned colors, arranged in a diamond pattern. Satisfied with how the bodysuit fits him, he gets a utility belt out of the case, looping it around his waist and clicking it closed in the front. The gloves that lay in the case are an off-white color, highlighted with lines of the same dark green of his suit. The boots of his costume, oh innocent summer child, are the same bright red color as his favorite high tops. Katsuki, who's almost done getting his own costume on, he has a mask in his ungloved hands, snorts at the sight. What is it with you and those obnoxious red shoes, nerd? Smirking, the brunette answers, I like red, leave my shoes alone. The blonde only shakes his head with a smirk of his own and continues to tie the mask in his hands across his eyes. Once he's done tying his shoes, Izuku grabs the last item in his costume case, his mask. It's really more of a hood than a mask, and it's connected to a respirator that would cover his nose and mouth, should the situation call for it. Laying it on his shoulders like a wreath, the mask in front, Izuku feels the hidden magnets in the bottom of the hood and the back of his collar connect, keeping it in place. Now completely dressed, he sees Katsuki putting on his definitely steel-toed boots. He snorts at the metal kneecaps and points at them. What are those supposed to be, kakin? Huh? So I'm able to kill with my knees. Obviously, the blonde answers in a matter-of-fact kind of way, finishing with his combat boots and takes one of the giant grenade-looking things off of the bench next to him. What are those things for? Izuku asks before Katsuki attaches it over the weird-looking gloves on his lower arms, answering the question without intending to do so. Oh, do they store your sweat? For bigger explosions, I see. Put off, Katsuki grimaces, you're doing it again, nerd. Go analyze someone else. He grunts before putting on the second arm guard. Sorry. Izuku reflexively apologizes and averts his eyes. He lets his gaze wander across his still remaining classmates, some having left already. Keeping his mutterings low, he is soon pulled along by Katsuki, out of the changing rooms and towards ground beta. There, All Might is already waiting with a box. He praises the students for their costumes and starts explaining the exercise. We will put all your names into this box, pulling names to build teams. Those teams will then be matched up to fight against each other in a villain versus hero scenario that I will explain later. The teacher calls. Ida raises his hand and speaks before being called upon. Is it a good idea to randomly throw us into teams? Exasperated at his attitude, Izuku. Gumball's real heroes don't have a choice in who they have to fight alongside with either, and turns beet red when he notices several of his classmates turning towards him. Apparently he had spoken louder than intended. Correct, young Midoriya. Pro-heroes often have to fight with what they have, even when the villains they are up against had time to prepare themselves. Before we get any further into this, we will pull names to build teams. All Might says and starts jamming his hand into the way too small box. Team A, Izuku Midoriya plus Achiko Uraraka. Team B, Shoto Todoroki plus Mizo Shoji. Team C, Momo Yaoyorozu plus Hitoshi Shinso. Team D, Katsuki Bakugo plus Tenya Ida. Team E, Yuga Aoyama plus Mina Ishido. Team F, Rikido Sato plus Koji Koda. Team G, Denki Kaminari plus Kyokajiro. Team H, Fumikage Tokoyami plus Tsuyu Azui. Team I, Mashireo Ojiro plus Toru Hagakure. Team J, Ijiro Kirishima plus Hantasiro. The teams all found their teammates, standing together in pairs. Great! Now that we have teams, I will explain the exercise in more detail. We will randomly decide one team to be the villain team and one team to be the opposing hero team. The villains will get 15 minutes to prepare themselves. They will get a fake atomic bomb that they can place in this building. All Might gestures at the building behind him. Wherever they want, set traps and plan ahead. The hero team will receive a map of the building 5 minutes before heading inside. Tactics can be discussed after I am done with matching up the teams. Is everything clear? A chorus of affirmation makes him nod his head. Great. On to matching up the teams. Hero Team A versus Villain Team D. Hero Team B versus Villain Team I. Hero Team H versus Villain Team J. Hero Team G versus Villain Team C. Hero Team E versus Villain Team F. Alright, Team A and Team D will stay here. Villains head inside, situate yourself. You have 15 minutes before I will send the heroes inside. All Might says, the rest of you, off into the observation room. Hero Team A versus Villain Team D. Izuku Midoriya plus Achiko Uraraka versus Katsuki Bakugo plus Tenya Ida. We're screwed. Katsuki laments. Looking out of the third-floor window, he and Ida decided to put their bomb in. The taller of the two looks at him questioningly. Why would you say that before the exercise even started? Izuku is the problem. The guy has a quirk that's way too much. I doubt I could hold him off for long. Don't you dare tell him I said that. The blonde growls. I won't. What even is his quirk? You seem to know him from before UA. Ida asks. Katsuki hums. He basically has 4 different quirks. He can switch between them, can't use 2 at once. First one is a telekinesis quirk, he can fly with that. Don't know what his current weight limit is. Second is fire, he shoots it from his hands from what I know. Apparently he's trying to get his quirk to make him breathe fire as well. Third is the one with the horns. I don't think he'll use that one, since his horns broke it's been pretty weak. But there's the strength one. He can even materialize weapons but I don't think he'll use that. The explosive teen explains. That does sound rather strong. The taller of the two admits and nods. The blonde scoffs, rather. It's FNG overpowered. Language. Ida scolds. So, what do you have in mind? Ochako asks Izuku, who regards the building in front of him with squinted eyes. Kaken knows my quirk as well as I do his. So he'll probably lay it out for Ida. No surprise attack from our side then. I can use Psychic to fly and scout. Magus might be useful to keep Ida at bay, should he decide to confront us. Otherwise, I could very well just use Psychic to immobilize them and finish the game, but you would not get to do anything. Izuku mutters out loud. The brunette hums, you're really smart, Izuku. I won't mind if you do it on your own. The exercise is about catching the villains or defuse the bomb. The less damage we do, the better, she adds. Izuku blushes but continues, thanks. But if you're really sure, I'll scout the windows and immobilize them from outside. You can go and either capture them with the tape or touch the bomb. With this agreement in place and the signal in their earpieces that the heroes are allowed to act, Ochako heads inside and Izuku changes to Psychic, pressing the purple button on his chest. Izuku lifts himself off the ground and flies a little ways away from the building to have a better view of the place. Scouting around the building, he spots the familiar poof of blonde hair in a window of the 3rd floor. He pushes the button on his earpiece. Uraraka, they are on the 3rd floor. Tell me before you enter the room so I can try taking them by surprise. A quick affirmation later, he sticks to the wall underneath the 2nd floor windows to stay out of sight. About 2 minutes pass, before the hushed voice of Ochako sounds in his ear. I think I found them. I can hear them talking. Do you hear both of them? Izuku asks. Ochako takes a second to answer, I do. I think Bakugo is complaining about something and Ida is scolding him for swearing. I don't think it'll help though, she says and suppresses a chuckle. Yeah, he's a lost cause. I tried as well, he answers sheepishly. Okay, get ready, I'm going up. Izuku floats up as fast as he can, immediately grabbing hold of Katsuki, who's still way too close to the window, and also holding down Ida as soon as he spots him on the other side of the bomb. Go, go, he calls. The door bursts open, revealing Ochako charging for the fake bomb. Curses stream from Katsuki's mouth, but he can't do anything as Ochako reaches the weapon and touches it to signal the end of the round. Hero Team wins. All Might calls over the earpieces. Hero Team B versus Villain Team I. Shoto Todoroki plus Mizo Shoji versus Mashireo Ojiro plus Toru Hagakure. Before Shoji could set foot into the door, the small arm of his teammate holds him back by blocking his way. He could have easily walked. Passed anyways, but something tells him to listen to this teen with his dual-colored hair. Just seconds later, the whole building is covered by a layer of ice, maybe between 5 and 7 centimeters thick. The tall and quiet teen blinks up at the building, only noticing his equally as quiet teammate walking inside a moment later. They both arrive in the room where the villain team is frozen to the ground by their feet after a short search. Nonchalantly, Shoto walks up to the fake nuke and lays his hand on it. Hero team wins, comes All Might's announcement over their earpieces. Hero Team H vs Villain Team J. Fumikage Tokoyami plus Tu Azui vs Ijiro Kirishima plus Hantasiro. The two animal-themed teens eye the building in front of them warily. Do you know what our opponents can do, Karo? Tsuya asks and tilts her head. Fumikage inclines his head. I am uncertain, but the red-haired one is the one that can turn solid, I assume. The one with the big elbows shoots tape if I am not mistaken. Her finger finds her lower lip, worrying it softly. Karo, sticky tape shouldn't be a problem for your quirk, yes? The raven nods, correct. Dark Shadow won't stick to tape. I doubt he'll do any harm to the rock boy though. Tsuyu looks up at the building. I can scale the facade and look from the outside, Karo. Can you immobilize Kirishima? At the confused look of her teammate, she clarifies, the red-haired one with the rock quirk. We will certainly give our all. The boy nods and his quirk manifests to emphasize with its own nod and thumbs up. Ijiro and Hanta set up in the 5th of 6 floors. Hey, do you know what those two can do? The redhead wonders, guarding the open door. Hanta, who's sticking his tape across the hallway to hinder their enemies, shrugs. Tokoyami is pretty quiet and sticks to himself, so I don't really know what his quirk is. Tsuyu though, she's basically a frog, I guess. A frog? Echoes Ijiro. So what, a long tongue and sticking to walls? The Ravenet hums, I guess, yeah. Frogs really dislike the cold, so Todoroki would have an easier time in defeating her. She also shared some rather disgusting facts about her quirk, but I don't think that'll help them here. With a nod, Ijiro steps over to the stairs, looking down through the spaces between the flights of steps. Soon enough, Hanta deems his work done and gestures to his teammate to get back into the room with their bomb. In their little room, he also tapes the windows shut, leaving the glass panes open for light. And now we wait, he declares. When they hear steps approaching, Ijiro hardens his arms in preparation while Hanta juts out his elbows, ready to immobilize whoever enters their little room. They hear a terrible ripping noise, probably from all of Hanta's put-up tape being ripped at once, before a dark, shadowy claw grips the door frame. This madness will stop at once, calls the raven-headed teen from behind his dark shadow. Surrender, villains, and we might go easy on you. Barking out a laugh, Hanta retorts, come and try, little heroes. Suddenly, everything happens all at once. Dark Shadow enters the room, followed closely by Tokoyami himself. Hanta starts shooting his tape to capture the opposing teen, resulting in all of his efforts being ripped apart by the sentient quirk entity that shields the other boy. Kirishima charges at Tokoyami as well, where Dark Shadow dumps all of the ripped-up tape on the redhead, effectively immobilizing him with it. Suddenly a window breaks, revealing Tsuyu, who had scaled the building on the outside. She jumps towards the bomb. Hanta tries taping her up, but he's held down by Dark Shadow. And the round is over. Team Heroes wins. Hero Team G vs Villain Team C. Denki Kaminari plus Kyokajiro vs Momo Yaoyorozu plus Hitoshi Shinso. The hero team stands outside the building they know the villains will hide their weapon in. Map in hand, Kyoka tries her best to memorize the layout, even if she can just listen to find the other teens. Her companion dumbly stares at her, and when she finally has enough, she glares back. What? She barks. He has the decency to look sheepish. Nothing. Sorry. He fidgets for a moment. So, do you have a plan? She sighs heavily. Not really. I know Yaoyorozu's quirk. She creates things. But that other guy? Shinso or something. I have no idea. Kaminari lights up, figuratively mind you. His quirk is brainwashing. I overheard Midoriya talking to Bakugo about it. And how does it work? She deadpants. Again he looks away. I didn't think it would become important so soon, so I didn't try to keep it in mind. Kyoka facepalms. Just great, she mutters under her breath. Hitoshi and Momo put their weapon into a closed-off room in the middle of one of the floors. No windows meant less entry points they had to cover. Momo already took the task upon herself to lay out some booby traps. Are you sure this is gonna work? Hitoshi asks, barely above a whisper and no excitement in his voice. Momo gives him a sideways glance. It will at least buy us some time, right? He shrugs. Don't push yourself. You only have to hold off one of them until I'm done with the first. I'll probably take out the blonde one first. He seems to have some wide-ranged quirk going on. Plus he seems like someone who would easily let his guard down. Done with the trap she was working on, Momo gets up and turns to face her partner. What does your quirk do for you to be so confident? When someone answers a question I ask, I can brainwash them. They'll listen to about anything I'll ask, he explains, watching the color drain from her face. Oh, that should indeed become useful. Kaminari-san didn't strike me as the most quiet person, she offers and awkwardly turns to watch the stairs. Once they hear someone rushing up the steps, Hitoshi stands in front of Momo. The first one to reach the top is the blonde. Hey man, what are you doing here? Hitoshi calls, sounding way more friendly than just moments before. Denki perks up. You know why dash? He trails off with his eyes glazing over. Come here and let me capture you with the tape. Hitoshi commands. As asked of him, Denki steadily makes his way over to the purple-haired teen, turning around with his hands at his lower back to allow Hitoshi to wrap the capture tape around his wrists. As soon as he is pronounced, captured and out, Hitoshi releases his quirk from him. We're here. He finishes his before-started sentence. Confused, he looks around, finding his hands tied up behind his back. ADMN. Suddenly, ear-bursting sounds erupt from the staircase. Kyoka had her earlobe jacks hooked up to the speakers on her shins, blasting the villain team with sound waves of her heartbeat. Acting quickly, Momo creates soundproofing earmuffs for herself and her teammate. He nods at her in thanks, quickly slipping them over his ears. Sweet silence restored, Momo also pulls a long staff from her arm, charging at Kyoka, who looks rather flustered, trying to come up with something to maybe win the round anyways. Before she can think of something, Momo reaches her, overwhelms her with practiced ease and wraps the capture tape around her. The villain team wins. Hero Team E versus Villain Team F. Yuga Aoyama plus Mina Ishido versus Rikido Sato plus Koji Koda. Any and all plans that Mina tries coming up with are instantly shut down by the glittery teen she calls her teammate. He poses ridiculously in all sorts of positions, showing off his shiny cape. Isn't my cape magnifique? He asks for the endage time already. Dripping with her acid, holding her temper down, Mina tries again. Listen, we need to come up with something or these other two will get the better of us. My bow laser will do the work, you will see, mademoiselle. He sings, striking another stupid pose. The pink girl facepalms, accidentally splattering the acid gathered on her hand around herself. Some of it even reaches Yuga's oh-so-pretty cape. And he shrieks. How could you do this? He asks, high-pitched voice spiking in her ears. Mina waves him off. Maybe now you'll finally listen to me? She huffs. We need to come up with something. Sato has a strength quirk, but I don't know about Koda. Any ideas? Her dramatic partner indeed decides to drop the act for a moment. I don't know about Koda's quirk either, but they can't do anything about my laser. Listen, Aoyama, as good as your laser is, we can't damage the stupid bomb or we'll be disqualified, she insists. Sato carries the papier-mâché bomb through the building, his meek companion following closely. Once he's set it down in one of the upper floors, he turns and startles Koda. Ah, sorry Koda. Didn't mean to startle you. I gotta ask though, what exactly is your quirk? We need to work together, right? The buff teen says, crossing his arms and leaning against a wall. I can talk to animals A and ask them T to do things for ME, comes the almost whispered answer. So, blinks, I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. He says as he steps a bit closer, can you repeat that? I said I can talk to animals and ask him to do things F for me. Koda replies a little bit louder than before. But there are no animals here, so I can't really help. Sorry, he trails off. Sato gapes at him for a moment, but waves the apology off. Nah, it's fine. We're just in training after all, so we should be okay. They hear their opposing team bicker from 2 floors down, so they are not surprised once Mina storms the room, flinging low-potency acid every which way to keep the villains at bay. She doesn't hit anyone though, the villains, having the advantage of hearing her before she was even on the same floor. Koda intentionally stands in her field of vision to act as bait, which she openly takes by starting to charge at him, while Sato comes up behind her, stepping out from behind the open door. He simply grabs her, easily overpowering her with this brawn, slightly enhanced by a little snack he took before she entered the room, and offers her to Koda to tie up with the provided capture tape. Sato carefully sets her down when she stops struggling. Ashido hangs her head in defeat with a heavy sigh. Enter, Ayam. With a boisterous laugh, he fires his laser at the villain team, which the 2 other teens dodge quickly. The blonde keeps firing his quirk at the other team, who had taken cover behind a pillar next to the weapon. His aim getting worse with each shot, caused by his backlash, namely stomach pains. One of the beams eventually misses his target completely, embedding itself in the fake nuke and cleanly cutting through the papier-mâché. Hero team is disqualified by destroying the weapon. Team villains wins. Back in the observation room, the last missing students trickle in. Aoyama is holding his stomach, an uncomfortable look on his face. Ashido looks crestfallen, having been caught that way without being able to show off her abilities at all. Sato looks proud of his maneuver and Koda looks sheepish as ever, fiddling with his hands and hiding halfway behind his teammate. All Might claps his hands, catching the attention of the class. Great! Everyone has had their turn now. Let's discuss, he says and presses a button on the remote in his hand. The wall of screens lights up and video footage from the first round plays across them. So, who do you think was the MVP in this round? All Might prompts. Yaoyorozu speaks up first. I believe it was Midoriya. He seems to have planned their course of action and initiated their ambush while also playing a massive part in restraining the villain team for Uraraka to safely secure the weapon. All Might nods and nobody has anything more to say while the round on the screen is almost over, showing Uraraka crouching in front of the door to the room that the 2 villains are bickering in. The crucial scene of the first round plays out for everyone, wrapping up the reviews for this round. Katsuki looks peeved, but Izuku stands next to him either way, bumping into him from time to calm him down a bit. Well, on to the second recording, where Todoroki and Shoji went up against Ojiro and Hagakure. All Might says, pressing another button on his remote, making the screens start playing the video of round 2. Seeing themselves shock-frosted to the floor makes the invisible girl and the tailed boy wince at the screens. Who was the MVP of this round? What do you think? The teacher coaxes. Hesitantly, a hand raises and All Might points at the person. Yes. Young Jiro. Oh. It's obviously Todoroki, right? He just froze the whole DMN building, immobilizing all potential threats that could be present aside from the villain team and safely securing the weapon. The hero nods, humming thoughtfully. Yes, indeed he single-handedly took out the villains and secured the weapon. But he could have very well hurt them, especially Ms. Hagakure who was barefooted to properly use her quirk. The villains could have had hostages as well, who could have gotten hurt due to this broad attack. Always consider, you are training to become heroes. Reckless behavior and disregarding people's health are unbecoming of future pros. Another hand is raised, prompting the hero to call on the next student. Yes, young Midoriya. I'll say Shoji was the MVP, seeing that he cared for the injured Hagakure after they won the fight. He carried her to Recovery Girl to get the best and fastest medical attention to her. He also helped Ojiro, whose tail got a small freeze burn as well. Helping the injured and caring for other people should be also one of the highest priorities to a pro hero. Izuku explains. All Might nods. Yes, very accurate young Midoriya. Does anyone have anything to add? Nobody tried speaking up, so they proceeded with the third round. Without having to prompt anyone, a hand already raises as soon as the footage starts playing back. showing Kirishima and Siro walking into the building while Tokoyami and Azui start speaking amongst themselves a little ways off. Calling on to the next student, All Might gives permission to speak. Birdface, or his shadow or whatever, used Tape Arm's quirk against himself and his teammate by immobilizing Shitty Hair with all the sticky tape from the attack and the shitty trap from the hallway as well. He also distracted and restrained Tape Arms long enough for Frogface to finish the round. He's obviously the one who did the most work. The explosive student leaning against the back wall of the room explains. Kaken. Izuku gasps. Be nice, I said. Katsuki just scoffs at his friend. I am being nice, nerd. Snapping out of his stunned silence, All Might answers, yes. Young Bakugu is indeed right. Tokoyami was the MVP of the round. He effectively took out the villains, even using their own weapons against them, and also gave his partner enough time to safely secure their victory. Just a few moments later, the next battle round, number 4 with Kaminari and Jiro versus Yaoyorozu and Shinso, starts playing on the wall of screens. Everyone watches the heroes of the scenario argue, with the female of the team looking exasperated at her very blonde teammate. Siro smirks at his electric friend. What was going on between you two there? Jabbing an elbow into the smaller side. Kaminari slaps his arm away, his blush barely noticeable in the darkness of the room. Nothing. Shut up. So, All Might starts, what do you guys think? A hand raises and is called upon. Yes, young Uraraka. I believe Shinso or Yaoyorozu have been the MVP. Shinso stayed calm, quickly and safely took out Kaminari. But Yaoyorozu protected herself and her teammate from Jiro's attack and took her out quickly without much possibilities for injury, the brunette explicates. Their teacher nods sagely, yes, good observations. Anyone favor someone else? When nobody else speaks up, All Might finishes the feedback, alright, let's declare both as MVPs. After all, they work together to effectively win the round. A quiet murmur washes over the class while the pro starts up the last recording. Last but not least, let's focus for one more round, then the lesson will be over, he declares. Aoyama and Ishido are in the main focus of the class in the beginning, where the French boy clearly sees off his teammate, be it intentionally or simply the difference in personality. Meanwhile, the villain team tries their best to communicate and work together, even when one of them essentially can't use his quirk at all. They set up in a room with windows, seeing as both their opponents shouldn't be able to scale the outside walls or fly dash, where Sato hides behind the half-opened door while Koda stands between said entrance and the weapon. So, what do you think? All Might prompts his students. Izuku raises his hand and gets called upon. I think Koda was the MVP here. He starts. A quiet, indignant noise comes from somewhere behind Sato, but goes ignored. He communicated well with his teammate, contrary to the heroes in this scenario who even split up after apparently fighting. Even without being able to use his quirk, mind you, he served as a distraction to enable his teammate with a strength-enhancing quirk to capture the first opponent. Being disqualified by Aoyama's reckless firing is only appropriate. Imagine if the villains had taken the second hero captive and the naval laser hurt her as well. Aside from the fact that a proper bomb would probably have detonated with a laser being shot at it, risking the hero's lives and all surrounding civilians, in case there was no evacuation. The greenette trails off. Sato nods at the explanation of his smaller classmate. I agree, even if he's a bit on the quiet side, me hiding behind the door to wait for Ishido was his idea. Many surprised looks and an appreciative nod of their teacher later, everyone agrees on Koda being the MVP of the last round, much to the quiet teen's embarrassment. Soon after, class was dismissed by All Might. The students chattered among each other on their way to the changing rooms. The rest of the school day was, in the words of several students, boring. Normal classes like maths and hero history. Once all classes are over, Izuku finds himself in the same little group as the day before, with Katsuki being his regular companion on his way home but again joined by Ochako, Ida, Ishido, Kirishima and Kaminari. Pair by pair, they split up to go on their separate ways, finishing the day with exhausted smiles. Oi Izuku. Yes, Kaken. Have your points gotten any better recently? Oh yeah, they have. The training with all might those months before the entrance exam, the test Aizawa-sensei made us take, and the exercise yesterday were really rewarding. And I mean really rewarding. Not counting our other lessons here. By the way, the Greenette smiles. The few other passengers in the compartment mind their own business. The two childhood friends had decided to take the early train again, having more time to catch up among themselves this way. Ignoring their new friends in favor of nerding out about RPG would be plenty rude after all. Lay M on me then, the blonde says, Izuku's notebook in hand to jot down the new stats for him. The old entries are summarized neatly in a table, several new columns already drawn in to easier keep track of the progress. While Izuku commands Kaden to show him his current stats, he reads them off and Katsuki writes along. 13yo 14yo 15yo 15 day 2 at UA. Strength 5677. Agility 4678. Endurance 4455. Intelligence 5689. Wisdom 5578. Wit 4566. Psychic 10 98 12 33 14 60 18 48. Magus 11 03 12 37 14 13 17 63. Druid Restoring 15 95 17 71 19 85 24 29. Druid Mimicry 0 84 2 12 3 79 7 00. Warrior Tehance 7 32 8 45 10 07 12 50. Warrior Weapons 0 61 1 88 3 31 5 98. Katsuki eyes the updated sheet in his hands with raised eyebrows. You know, this is going way higher, way faster than either of us guessed in the past. Izuku hums, even with the denominator of 100 for all my quest points that Kaden uses. I think otherwise these points would get confusing, I guess. Having basic two-digit numbers is easier to keep track of, even with the decimal places they give. Technically, we don't even need to write those down, they don't really do anything. A small blue flame dances from Izuku's mouth with the chuckle he can't hold back. Magus had cracked the 15 points for Izuku to finally breathe fire as well, which he could change the heat of in the same manner like his normal flames. Druid was finally growing back the horns, but where they had been growing straight out of his head and were sometimes more of a hindrance than useful, they were now growing in big curls around his head. Much like a ram, where Katsuki was finally able to call him a goat. But with the curled form and their position on his head, he could literally headbutt walls now without harming himself, which Katsuki was already on the receiving end of for his teasing. Said horns are still pretty short, only about 10 centimeters. They also don't show through his hair as obviously as before, barely being big enough to protrude over his curly mess with their width. Not much changed about warrior or psychic, though. They simply got stronger with each upgrade. Honestly, Izuku can't think of stuff these two could be improved with aside from lifting heavier stuff respectively. The two friends get off the train at their station, walking the rest of the way in a comfortable silence. From afar, they can already see a horde of reporters with cameras and big microphones crowding the entrance. You gotta be FING kidding me. Katsuki says, exasperated. Language Kaken, you can't say things like that on TV. Izuku teases. You wanna skip them? Not missing a beat, Katsuki immediately nods. Yeah, I don't want to deal with those vultures. Kaden, psychic please, he commands without breaking his stride. Once he felt his quirk setting, he picks himself and Katsuki up. Before the reporters even notice them, the two sail over them, suppressing their laughter at the stunned faces when the teens land behind the UA barrier while Izuku waves his arm at them with a big smile on his face. Izuku and Katsuki decide to stay outside for a bit longer, knowing they are the first. They don't see the need to go to their classroom just yet. A few minutes later, Katsuki jabs Izuku in his side, nodding towards the main entrance, where some reporters start hounding poor Eraserhead. Izuku snorts. Their homeroom teacher looks so done. Poor man just wants to go do his job. Abruptly, the teacher turns and walks inside the barrier. One of the pushiest reporters tries following after him, microphone extended. Suddenly, The gigantic metal barrier raises from the ground in under a second, locking the mob out from campus. "Oh my god," Katsuki laughs, "I got all of that on my phone." Izuku turns to him, a beaming smile accentuating his laughter. "You did not." The blonde turns his screen towards his friend, showing off the clip he just filmed. Both share a laugh while their teacher shoots them a tired look, walking inside grumbling. Soon, the barrier lowers itself again in reaction to a student's pass approaching, and the reporters stay back from the sensors this time, only chasing and yelling at the students before they are able to hurry inside. Class 1A has almost completely accumulated around Izuku and Katsuki by the time they decide to head for their classroom. When the last bell rings, Aizawa hasn't shown his face yet. As soon as he does, the students all hurry to their seats and quiet down. He eyes his class good. "Today, you're going to choose a class representative. I don't care how, just do so quietly," he announces, zips himself up in his sleeping bag and sits down in a corner to take a nap. The teens lag for a moment, exchanging looks of confusion. A mood of "that's so normal" sets over them before several erupt into shouts. "I want to be class rep," yells Ashido. Aoyama scoffs, "This is a job for moi." Kaminari raises his hand in a flash, "I want to be rep." "A manly job should go to a manly guy like me," says Kirishima. Izuku and Katsuki just eye each other, shrugging. They don't want that responsibility, even if it would look good on their resumes. Ida makes them all shut up in a big shout, "We should vote." All students eye him critically. "But everyone would just vote for themselves," objects Uraraka. Izuku butts in, "Yeah, so if anyone has more than one vote, they get to be rep, easy enough." Shortly after, Yaoyorozu hands out small square papers produced from her forearm, while Ida sets up at the front of the class to collect and chart the votes on the blackboard. Silently, Izuku and Katsuki nod to each other, writing down their best candidate and hand the tall girl their folded papers. A few minutes of reading names off of the notes and tallying them on the blackboard later, the votes were obvious. Yaoyorozu had 5 votes. Ida had everyone else that ended up on the list only had a single vote, probably from themselves. The mature girl looked bashful, thanking the class for their trust and promising to give it her all while Ida bowed in his usual 90-degree angle multiple times, agreeing with his colleague. At lunch, after some normal classes, Izuku and Katsuki sat at a table together with the majority of their class. Ida was still reluctant to accept his position as deputy. "You know," Izuku starts after finishing his lunch, "I was one of the people who voted you, Ida." "Midoriya." "I am honored." The vigorous teen bows as well as he can while not dumping his head in his food. "But if I may ask, why did you vote me?" The greenette smiles at him. "You were the one that suggested that we vote in the first place and you managed the work it brought with it. Yeah, the position fits you, glasses. Just accept it." Katsuki says, leaning back in his chair. Their new class representative wanted to speak up as well, but she was cut off by a blaring alarm howling above their heads. "What's happening?" she asks instead with wide eyes. A third year passes by them. This alarm means someone breached the barrier. He yells over the alarm. A panic breaks out, leading to shoving in the overstuffed halls. Izuku is smushed against a window when he catches sight of the same mob of reporters that triggered the barrier this morning. This time on campus, about halfway to the main entrance. He rolls his eyes and huffs in annoyance at those vultures. "Cadden, psychic please," he says under his breath, and as soon as he can, he lifts himself from the stampeding mob of students to fly overhead and yell, "Guys, calm down. It's just the media, stop panicking. We're all students at UA, behave like it." Slowly, the shoving and the clamor peters out. One by one the students gaze up at the green net floating above them, repeating his message over and over. By the time the next lesson starts, all students, including one, had calmed down and orderly returned to their respective classrooms. Ida marches over to where Izuku and Katsuki are having a relaxed conversation. "Midoriya," the tall teen calls. Startled, the greenette looks up at his classmate. "Ida? What do you need?" The strict teen shakes his head. "I don't need anything. I wanted to tell you to take the position as deputy. The way you handled the panic, calming all of the students down as fast as you did while I could just sit by and watch. No. Izuku interrupts him, I voted for you and I stand by that. You might have frozen at an emergency, but that will wear off over time. You are diligent, earnest, and sincere. By all means, you are better suited for the job. But Ida tries objecting. No, but Ida, you'll do great, I know it. Izuku shakes his head. Ida clumsily salutes, I will give my all to not disappoint you, he says and struts over to his seat. Izuku tries arguing about that last statement, but his tall classmate was already back at his desk. When he enters the room, Aizawa nods his head approvingly, seeing all of his students sitting at their desks looking at him. Good. Now, we'll go over your next basic hero training. For that we will need to take the bus. Go change into your costumes or gym uniforms and meet me outside of the main entrance, he announces and turns heel. Quickly, most students grab their costume cases, others that had their costumes damaged in their last exercise went with their gym uniforms instead. Barely 10 minutes later, everyone met in front of the school, earning another approving nod from their strict homeroom teacher. Ida made his peers line up in pairs to smoothly board the bus. Once they started doing that, however, a collective giggle made its way through the group at the revelation that half of the bus was arranged in the saloon seating, a row under the windows on each side, facing the middle. The deputy class rep was bashful and subdued for the next few minutes until departure. Passing by a sign saying USJ, with an arrow pointing in the direction they are heading, Izuku smiled. Today was rescue training. For this, he decided to turn back to Druid. After he feels his horns had stopped growing, he joined in on the conversation around himself and Katsuki. I dunno man, my quirk isn't flashy at all. Todoroki or Bakugo will have an easier time getting known with theirs. Kirishima says. Izuku is taken aback but can't button because the other greenette of the group, Tsuyu Azui, did so before he could. I don't think Bakugo will become too popular. His personality doesn't really fit a good hero. What did you just say, Frogface? Said Blonde figuratively explodes. His hands only crackle with his outburst. See, she says, pointing at him while turning the other way to face the majority of her classmates. The giggle passes through the students. Kaminari chimes in, yeah, you're way too angry all the time, why need to calm down a bit, Blasty? Katsuki growls, doesn't say any more though because of Izuku's hand on his shoulder forcing him back on his seat. You guys are being unfair, I think, he finally says. Kaken might be impulsive, but he wants to do good. He wouldn't hurt anyone on purpose if they didn't earn it. Silence. Then Ishido starts cracking up. Izuku gives her a questioning look. Oh, I'm sorry, she says giddily and continues with less mirth this time, it's just, you're so pure and Bakugo over there is basically your polar opposite. I don't get how you two are as close as you are. Izuku shrugs, we've grown up together. He gets his attitude from his mom. A glare from Katsuki. See? He'd glare and look angry, but he'd never actually try hurting me. Mostly because he knows he can't, but he doesn't try at least. He finishes with a challenging smirk at his childhood friend. What? You want me to try? Katsuki answers, the explosions in his hands bigger than last time and a threatening grin on his lips. They clear an overpass, the bus shortly shrouded in shade. Uraraka gasps and as soon as the light is back, she gets close to Izuku's face. He startles, stammering at her closeness. Your eyes glow? She asks incredulously. Taken aback, he falls silent for a moment, before answering, yes? They always do when I'm Druid. She shakes her head and sits back down, leaving his personal space. They didn't in the entrance exam. At least I don't remember them doing it. Oh yeah, they glow brighter the more energy I have stored. When I healed your leg, I basically didn't have a lot left so they weren't really bright I guess. He tries explaining. Uraraka hums, and your horns. He pats down his hair and answers, Kadin says they are more efficient now, so they don't need to be that tall. They will continue to grow around my head though, he says. Oh, also when I've filled up my reserves my horns start sprouting plants. I guess it'll be more annoying now that they're this close to my hair. Izuku adds. Shortly after, the bus slows to a stop in front of a huge dome structure. The students hurry off the bus, following their teacher towards and inside the building. A hero in a space suit greets them and Aizawa stops beside them, turning to his class. A big gasp erupts from Uraraka, the space hero, 13. "Oh, I'm a huge fan." Said hero clears their throat, "Thank you. I am indeed 13. What you see here in front of you is my training facility, the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or USJ. As many of you probably know, I specialize in rescue missions. My quirk, Black Hole, is perfect to clear disaster scenes. But on the other hand, it can be deadly. Anything and everything my quirk consumes is destroyed, which includes humans. As deadly as my quirk is, I decide to use it for good. And you all here have to realize as well, powerful quirks can end a life in all but a second. I've seen your files. There is fire and ice, explosions, zero gravity, electrocution and acid, just to name a few that could easily be lethal. You are here today to learn to use your quirks to save and not to fight." A small cheer erupts between the students once 13 has finished their speech. Izuku feels an ice-cold shiver run down his back. Dread fills him. Looking around the facility, he tries finding why he feels like this, when below, in the center of the facility, a black, misty portal opens up. Is this already part of the exercise? Kaminari asks. The teachers whirl around. Is All Might not here? Yells a young, scratchy voice from the center of the facility. We even brought along the weapon to kill him. Why is he not here? The gangly guy who stepped out of the portal eyes the group at the top of the stairs. Maybe if we kill some of these kids he will decide to come out of hiding. Aizawa pulls up his goggles. 13. Protect the students, he yells over his shoulder and jumps down the steps towards the villains that began gathering around the fountain on the plaza. The remaining teacher spreads their arms in an attempt to shield the students and calls, "Quick, out of the doors." A new voice, deep and smooth, tuts at 13, "I don't think I can allow that," he says as another misty portal opens up in front of the class. Said mist changes shape and two brightly glowing eyes glare at the students. "May I introduce us? We are the League of Villains. We came to kill All Might. You don't happen to know where he is?" he says and spreads his mist around the students. Due to their position behind the class, to protect them from possible threats coming up the stairs, 13 can't do anything but watch as the mist spreads further and swallows most of the students up, teleporting them away from the entrance step. With a big splash, Izuku lands in water. He looks around, quickly commanding Kadin in his thoughts to transform him into a sea creature so he doesn't drown. A shark-headed villain was approaching him when a cloud of smoke erupts. Relieved, Izuku took a look around. Beluga whales are mammals and need to breathe as well, but he'd have more time until needing fresh air. The shark-headed villain that was trying to attack him was now a small fry to the transformed student. He reared his tail and slapped the villain out of the water. In a quick movement, he slapped the guy as hard as he could manage, almost clearing the artificial lake of the USJ. So we're still in the facilities. They probably don't know our quirks, otherwise they wouldn't have put me in the shipwreck zone, he thinks. Something lands on his back as he floats around the surface after knocking some more villains out of and across the water. Confirming my theory, I see. So they put Azui here as well. Izuku considers while slowly paddling over to the center plaza. Jumping onto the dry land again, Azui lets down Shinso, who she had carried with her tongue the whole time. Wet to the bone, the purple-haired teen looks majorly disappointed. Thanks for pulling me out of there, Azui. Call me Tsu, she retorts and turns to Izuku, who transformed back and stepped out of his puff of light green smoke. I don't think they know what they're dealing with. They put you in the shipwreck zone, Azui dash. Call me Tsu, the girl interrupts and repeats. Tsu. At least they don't know our quirks. They are probably just being cautious for now, spreading us out across the different zones and putting up small-time villains against us. He considers the fight between their teacher, Eraserhead, and the mob of D-class villains at the plaza. With worry, he notices two villains just standing by. The supposed leader of these guys and the hulking figure of what he called the weapon to kill All Might. Izuku figures that Aizawa can handle himself for a bit longer by the looks of it and calls to his two companions. Come on you two. Let's go to the next zone to see if we can help somewhere. Tsuyu and Shinso nod and follow him towards a big, dark blue dome structure. Once they arrive, they open the big double doors, entering the downpour zone. Kaden, switch to psychic, he says and pushes the correlating button on his chest, making his costume's highlights show the color purple. He picks up himself and his two teammates, quickly scouting the area and catching sight of Tokoyami, who's fighting a few villains, protecting their meek classmate Koda. Izuku lands himself, Shinso and Tsuyu between the villains and his classmates. He forces the villains down with psychic, resulting in most of them falling unconscious. The few that get back up are knocked out by Tsuyu. Are you two okay? Anyone hurt? Izuku quickly asks, eyeing all of the present classmates. Tokoyami turns to Koda for a moment, before turning back to the green. We are alright, Midoriya. Thank you for helping us out. It was hard holding Dark Shadow back in this weather. Izuku continues, do you know if you're the only ones who landed here? Tokoyami is the one that answers him again. I've been dropped here from pretty high up, I only saw them dropping in Koda. But, are you all okay with me flying us out of here? It's faster, he further asks. After receiving a collective nod, he picks all of them up and flies them out of the downpour zone. Through the door, they have a good view of the main plaza. Aizawa is fighting the light-haired leader of the villains, his weapon still in the background. Izuku quickly brings his collected classmates up to the entrance, where he finds the halfway destroyed astronaut suit of 13. Shoji, Uraraka, Shiro, Sato and Ishido are standing around their unconscious form. Guys! Izuku calls, setting everyone down. Is everything okay? Is 13 hurt? Uraraka whirls around. Izuku. They hurt themselves. That warp guy made them use their quirk and turned it against them. Under his breath, he commands his quirk to switch to Druid, also pressing the green button on his chest dash, before he crouches down at the gaping hole in 13's left side. We sent Ida to get help from the school. We couldn't communicate to the outside from here. Ishido fills him in. He nods at his classmates and winces at the flowing blood that oozes from the wound where 13's left arm had been. I can't reform their arm now, I'm still too low on energy. Closing up the wound has to be enough. He thinks quickly. Pushing his hands on the open wound, he starts with healing up the frayed bones of their shoulder that stick out, stretches the muscle fibers over them and stitches them together along with the blood vessels. Then he gets to reforming the skin, covering the freshly healed shoulder. With sweat on his brow, he gets back up and gazes down at the center plaza. His blood runs cold. The hulking blue creature the villains brought with them was crouching over their teacher, its hand on his head, a small crater around it. Izuku jumps before even thinking about it. On his way down, he switches back to psychic, catches himself, lest he fall, and pushes the thing with all his might off of his teacher. The thing flies off, several meters back, startling the leader. What are you doing to my Nomu? Screeches the raspy voice of the light-haired man. Izuku doesn't answer, just switches back to Druid to try and save whatever he can. He makes quick work of the hairline fractures he can feel on his teacher's skull with his quirk. He doesn't have time to look at the open wounds on Aizawa's body or anything else when the pale leader comes charging at him. How dare you ignore me? He yells, stretching out his hands at the teen. Kaden Magus. Izuku yells back and feels the heat of his fire in his veins. With a big barrage of flames, the teen is able to make his opponent retreat. Oh, you cheater! Why do you have multiple quirks? The villain yells. It isn't multiple. My quirk is RPG. I have 4 forms. And I'll use every single one of them to save the people I care about, he answers. The man squints at him through the fingers of the hand that covers his face. So you don't seem like a normal NPC. Normal. Get him. Suddenly, the gigantic creature stands before the teen, rearing back its fist. Startled, Izuku releases a massive column of flames, catching it in his hottest fire. The Nomu screeches inhuman sounds, thrashes through the fire in its desperate attempt to shake it off. To no avail. Seeing that his fire works on this way too powerful creature, Izuku continues to cover it in the bright flames. Soon, the Nomu falls, still burning. The skin was completely burned off. Its exposed brain was almost completely liquefied. The leader and Izuku both stare at the corpse in horror, both for different reasons. While Izuku is unable to shake off the shock, he stares and drifts off. He is only startled out of it when a big hand lands on his shoulder. Third, he is unable to properly watch his fire as he yells and spits blue flames at the figure, flailing his arms and falling onto his butt. There, young Midoriya. No need to be scared anymore. I am here, says All Might with his hands raised in a soothing motion. All Might. Izuku stammers. The blonde hero nods. You did well, young Midoriya. All the students were able to make it out of their zones relatively unscathed. The way you saved 13 is impressive, Midoriya. They are already conscious again. Izuku startles again. Aizawa he says, breathlessly. Kaden, Druid, he says and scurries over to his still unconscious homeroom teacher. He turns him over onto his back to see if there are more injuries that he hadn't seen before. The blood on Aizawa's face looks worse than it is, just a laceration high on his right cheekbone. He stitches it up with glowing hands and moves down his teacher's body bit by bit. Hairline fractures and more cuts and bruises are healed when Izuku finally reaches Aizawa's arms. His right arm has a flayed wound on his elbow, the muscles and nerves there exposed. He swallows, lays his hands on it and reforms the skin over the joint. His quirk registers massive fractures and breaks in the radius and ulna. He sets the bones and fuses them back together before patching up the blood vessels and moving on to the other arm. You are pushing it, Izuku, informs the voice of his quirk. Just a bit more, he answers and treats the left arm of his teacher as well. Once finished, he scans the rest of the hero's body for serious damage. Finding none, he sits back on his haunches and sighs deeply. All Might had crouched down on Aizawa's other side to watch his student work. I think I got all the serious things. Izuku trails off before swaying and falling onto the ground beside his teacher. The world around him turns dark. Everything was dark and quiet. For a long time, Izuku just floated. What happened? Right, villains attacked us. At the USJ. He tried listening around him. A voice speaks up. Good morning, Izuku. Kaden, he wonders. A short affirmative is all the answer he gets. He hums, so, Kaden. Where are we? Status, unconscious. They mechanically answer. Why am I unconscious? He inquires. You switched between your forms too often and too quickly. Kaden supplies. You also almost emptied your reserves for Druid again. I believe a doctor would call this quirk exhaustion. But I did that before. That can't be the only reason. Izuku mutters. Indeed. His quirk agrees. He waits for Kaden to continue, but when they don't keep speaking, he asks, well, what is it? A traumatic event caused your mind to shut down. The memories hit him like a bag of bricks. He killed. The monster, Nomu, or whatever the villain had called it, died to his fire. Why would it die from that? The leader said it was designed to kill All Might. The #1 hero of Japan. It couldn't have been that simple. Would you like to return? A proper therapist would be the best option to deal with this situation. Kaden asks. He mulls this over for a moment. He nods at the blackness. You're right. Can you make me wake up? Izuku wonders. Kaden doesn't answer and he feels a pressure on his chest. Slowly, he blinks his eyes open. The white ceiling of Recovery Girl's infirmary greets him. Izuku, a familiar voice sounds close to his left side. A light blonde poof of hair invades his vision, obscuring the white ceiling. Deep red eyes stare into his softly glowing green ones. Aizu, he asks again. Kadash, he tries answering. His throat is so incredibly dry. Hold on, his friend says, turning away. Recovery Girl, he's awake. The short, elderly woman walks up to her most recent patient. You can't make a habit of this, she says, handing him a cup of water. He thanks her with a nod, raises the cup to his mouth and drinks all of its contents in greedy gulps. Thank you, he raspily says to the nurse. She answers by knocking her cane on top of his head, right between his horns. He yelps a quick ouch before she continues. Now, I want you to listen closely, she starts. You can't exhaust yourself like this every time anything happens. I get that you're training to be a hero, but you're a student. The teachers are the ones that should protect you, not the other way around. Izuku looks bashful, but perks up after a moment. How is Aizawa? And 13, he asks. The elderly nurse sighs deeply with a slow shake of her head. You did well on both their injuries. She starts and sits down at her desk. 13 reportedly has no issues with the stump you made, so the support course can fit a prosthetic for them. Aizawa said his head was crushed so hard he fell unconscious, but I couldn't find any injuries on his skull aside from residual bruising. His broken arms also only have some bruises left after you reset them. The cracks are well mended. I doubt he'll get issues with them. Izuku heaves a sigh of relief. I'm glad. His head was covered in hairline cracks, so it's good to hear I got them all. Recovery Girl shoots him a look at which he startles, but her eyes soften quickly, which doesn't mean it was okay that you had to exhaust yourself like this. I already gave them all a good talking to. Just having one rescue hero and one underground hero to protect you after what happened at the barrier was just reckless. The barrier? The hell did those reporters have to do with this? Katsuki snaps. Recovery Girl sighs at his curse. I am in no place to tell. I think Principal Nizu will come speak about it soon, though, she says. That's when the door clattered open to reveal a few of Izuku's classmates. Ashido, Kirishima, Uraraka, Ida and Kaminari crowd around Izuku. You're okay? Uraraka exclaims with a big relieved smile. Kirishima nods. The others told us what was going on where you were. That was so manly, dude. Saving 13 and Aizawa? And bringing down that weird monster too. Kaminari chimes in. Yeah, how did you even do that? Didn't the hand guy say that it was made to kill All Might? Why were you able to get it down that easily? With a queasy feeling in the pit of his stomach, Izuku pales. Ah, maybe it was made to resist punches? I burned it. I guess it wasn't made with more in mind than All Might. He swallows against the thick feeling in his throat. Ida stays weirdly quiet during the whole exchange. You're right, says a new voice from the door. The students turn to find their principal on the shoulder of their homeroom teacher, wrapped in the long capture scarf. Said teacher had bandages wrapped around his head and his arms. The animal speaks again. You were out for quite a while. The Hero Public Safety Commission examined the creature already. They found it had multiple quirks, and that it had gone berserk because of this. They found human DNA of multiple small-time criminals. Our best guess is that the villains experimented on humans for their plans. You did good, Midoriya. If not for you, All Might would have had a hard time. Aizawa speaks up as well. I couldn't turn off any of the creature's quirks, which is concerning. The fact that these villains were as confident as they were, that it could defeat or even kill All Might, it must have had strength enhancers or absorption of some kind. It wasn't designed to withstand fire. Even if it was accidental, a coincidence, you probably saved All Might's life. He finishes with a proud and wistful expression. Saved. All Might. Izuku stammers. Katsuki lays a hand on his shoulder. You did good, Aizu, he says, using the childhood nickname in spite of his classmates witnessing it. You still have to go to Hound Dog, his teacher adds. Izuku nods. Wise. I actually wanted to ask about that. Thank you, Aizawa-sensei, he stammers. The tired pro eyes his other present students. The rest of today's classes are cancelled. Go home and recover for tomorrow, he instructs the teens. An hour later, after all of his friends had left to go home aside from Katsuki, Izuku got the clear from Recovery Girl to leave her office. She tasked the blonde with keeping an eye on his friend. He has to keep going slow for a few days so the shock doesn't trigger any setbacks. The two head for the roof of the building. Izuku wants to get a breath of fresh air before going to Hound Dog's office. The student counselor was instructed by the nurse to stay behind for a first little conversation with the green-haired boy Dash. Sitting down against the wall of the exit, the two teens just sit in silence for a while, watching the clouds covering the sun. You know, Katsuki starts, I was thrown into that ruined zone with shitty hair. Izuku doesn't show any kind of reaction, but interrupts, his name is Kirishima. Katsuki waves a hand, whatever. But we kicked serious but over there. He said he was surprised at my fighting style. Said it was not what he expected with my swearing and everything. His friend shrugs, you are a loudmouth. But you knew that already. The blonde huffs. Anyways, he emphasizes and Izuku snorts despite himself. After we knocked those extras out, we went over to the landslide, where Half and Half had already frozen all his idiots to the ground. Gotta give it to him, looked hilarious. Izuku eyes him out of the corner of his eye. His name is Todoroki. And are you saying he's good? Katsuki jolts and grumbles. He doesn't give any other answer, continuing with his retelling. Half and Half followed us when we went over to the mountains. Dunce face, ponytail and earlobes were there. Izuku makes a weird face. Those are Yaoyorozu, Jiro and that Pikachu guy. Katsuki growls. Kaminari. Yeah, whatever. They were surrounded, so I crushed the dumbass villains. So weak they cried before I knocked them out. He scoffs. That tail guy also appeared from somewhere. We watched what happened with Aizawa and you down in the center. He trails off, rather quietly. Izuku juts his elbow into Katsuki's side. Come on. I'll be okay, he says, even while looking rather pale. The elder of the two lays a hand on the younger's shoulder. I know you'll be. Come on, let's get you to Hound Dog so we can go home soon. Izuku makes steady progress with the student counselor. Speaking with his friend had helped him a lot as well. He understood that what he did was necessary to keep everyone else safe. He also understood that he still has to learn a lot. The teacher made him think about other ways, what he could have done differently. But alas, he always came up with the same result. Saving his peers and his teacher. Even if it meant he had to burden himself with the death of a creature that was created for the sole purpose of killing someone. Or multiple someones. Under immense stress and pain. Meshed with living. Breathe. All Might visited his home a day after everything happened. He also talked with him about the incident directly. He thanked his student for his help. The hero had gotten information about the Nomu from the HPSC. It had multiple quirks, seemingly picked and chosen specifically with the number 1 hero in mind. Shock absorption, 2 different, complementing self-healing quirks and 1 with strength enhancement that could have rivaled All Might easily, with the drawback of sacrificing life force. What hadn't been accounted for was the teen with a quirk so special that even the teachers deemed him a blessing. Had he not been there, 13 would have not been healed this quickly and efficiently. Eraserhead might have lost one of his eyes with the amount of breaks and cracks the boy had healed on his skull and especially around his right eye socket. The students were in massive danger as it was as well. Also, the hero on the couch opposite to him continues. The young supposed leader of the villains was screeching obscenities at you while he was being pulled through a portal by one of his babysitters, I might say. Something about cheater or hacker? I don't know what he meant. Izuku is taken aback. Babysitters? He parrots. The blonde nods while Izuku's mother places a cup of tea on the coffee table in front of the pro. His father was at work while his mother had taken a few days off to be at home with her son. Yes. He was acting like a child that had its favorite toy destroyed by someone. With a richer vocabulary, but still. I wasn't able to reach him in time before the portal closed. He laments and shakes his head. That's when I found you standing there, spaced out as you were, the hero adds. Thoughtful, Izuku nods. Inko speaks up, is it really safe for my Izuku to go to UA? With the attack and everything it makes me doubt if he will be alright there. Her son shoots her a shocked look. Mom, don't even start please. You know being a hero with Kaken was always my dream. UA has the best success rate for their graduates, he pleads. All Might also adds, I will assure you, Miss Midoriya, the teachers will not fail the students like this again. The sports festival will be held soon. Safety measures are being revamped as we speak. While the festival is ongoing, security will be doubled as well. The visitors will be as safe as can be, as well as the competitors. UA will show the world that it's still the best hero school out there. He finishes with bravado. As ridiculous as he looks on the way too small couch underneath him, basically crouching with his knees touching his hunched-over upper body, he still gives off an aura of confidence. Inko seems to fight with herself for a moment, eyebrows narrowed. The frown on her forehead evens out when she sighs quietly, "Alright. Izuku, you can stay in UA. But if you ever think it's not safe for you there, you tell me. I won't make you drop out. I'll speak to your father as well when he comes home tonight." The teen lights up with a big smile. "Yes. Thank you, Mom, you're the best." He calls and rushes over to her to wrap her up in a big hug. She rubs his back. "You always say that." His mother smiles softly. He lets her go, smiles at her again and sits down in his armchair once more. All Might nods. "All right, Miss Midoriya. Young Midoriya. Now that we cleared this matter, I will take my leave," he announces, emptying his cup of tea. "Miss Midoriya, the tea was delicious. Thank you for having me," he adds while standing up. With lots of bows from the Greenette family, the #1 pro hero takes his leave. Later that same day, someone else visits the Midoriya residence. Izuku's father, Hisashi, was home again, and soon after he arrived, a knock sounds on their door. The spouses eye each other. "Are you expecting someone?" Hisashi asks. Inko just shakes her head while Izuku walks past the kitchen entrance to open the front door. A man with black hair and eyes stands in front of the open door. He introduces himself to the teen while holding up his badge for verification. "Good evening, my name is Naomasa Tsukachi. I'm a detective of the local police force. I came here to ask a few questions regarding the USJ incident," he says and kindly smiles at the boy, who turns into the house to call. "Hey Mom, Dad, it's a detective," Izuku says. The voice of his mother answers, "Let him in, Izuku, will be there in a second." Izuku steps aside and properly holds the door open for the detective to enter. The man excuses himself, takes his shoes off in the doorway and follows the teen into a quaint living room. "Please, take a seat. My parents are going to join in a minute." Izuku invites and sits down in his usual armchair. Tsukachi sits down on the other armchair, across from Izuku on the other side of the coffee table. A pudgy woman that looks like an older, female version of the boy enters the room. Behind her, a taller man with black hair the same style as his son, follows. They both greet the detective and the woman sets down a cup of tea in front of their guest. He thanks her and quickly gets out his notepad, eager to start questioning the boy about the USJ. After a summarized retelling of what happened to him, Izuku answers questions the detective asks him to the best of his ability. Meanwhile, his parents keep an eye on both of them, to intervene should anything overwhelm their son. A few of Izuku's answers are slow, where he chooses his words carefully. Tsukachi guesses, the boy has to be struggling with everything that happened. He'd heard from Toshinori that he's talking with Hound Dog, the student counselor which is a good thing. Even police officers have to go to therapy when they have to shoot someone, after all. So having the boy do so would have been his first request, hadn't the boy already asked for it on his own. Soon enough, Tsukachi had all the notes he could have asked for. Due to the nature of his quirk, he knew that Izuku believed all his answers to be true. Drinking the last of his offered tea, he bid the family farewell, not wanting to intrude for longer than really necessary. The news report made everything look worse than it really was. At least if you asked Katsuki. Izuku knew, he knew, that this would only be the beginning. According to All Might, the weirdly childish leader of the villains probably wasn't the biggest fish in that pond. Izuku keeps his attention halfway on the report. It is already widely known that UA High's Hero Corps students were attacked by a group that call themselves the League of Villains. Reportedly, enemy forces were plotting to kill our well-loved symbol of peace and #1 hero, All Might. Even after 72 villains were apprehended, further plans are yet to be revealed. The whereabouts of the leader are unknown. Injuries were kept to a minimum and all students were given a couple days off, to give UA the opportunity to revise their defenses and security. He sighs. The fact that the Nomu wasn't shown or talked about probably had something to do with him being the one to defeat it. On top of that, the HPSC would rather die than giving away the information to the public, that there's a villain organization that experiments on humans, creating creatures designed to kill the most powerful heroes. But alas, he'd have to live with the consequences of what he'd done. And with the consequences of his class showing up on the news. Which is already happening the next day when Katsuki and Izuku are on the train. To avoid the many people of the regular schedule, they take the early train again. Which was a great idea. But even so, they aren't alone in their compartment. Which leads to them being talked about and questioned. Which ticks off his explosive childhood friend, who jumps out of his seat in agitated anger. Oh my god, F off extras. Can't you mind your own effing business? He barks and glares at the people he notices watching with crackling palms. Kaken. Izuku calls surprised. I'm so sorry, he says, bowing in the general direction his friend is glaring at. He doesn't mean it like that. He's just stressed. Profusely apologizing, Izuku nudges his friend back down into his seat. More quietly, he regards Katsuki after most of the people had turned away. Kaken, please. You know they will only stare more once the sports festival happened, right? The blonde scoffs, whatever. I just hate the condescending looks they give us for having been attacked. They don't have a FING clue what happened. Those stupid news vultures don't know shit either and try telling the public what happened, he says. With a mumble, he adds, especially to you. Once off the train and at the end of their walk to the school, they are surprised to see no reporters at the front gates. Glad about this revelation, however, the two enter the school and head for their classroom early. As expected, the room is still empty and they walk over to their desks to quietly continue talking. Katsuki leans back in his chair and props his feet up on his desk. Izuku buries his hands in Katsuki's poof of hair and the latter wouldn't ever admit he liked the feeling. With his explosive sweat, he usually keeps his hands off of his own head for safety reasons. They hear chatter from the hallway before a group of their classmates enter the room. Ida, Uraraka, Ojiro, Yaoyorozu and Todoroki. The usual early birds. The brunette bounds over to Izuku when she spots him. Izuku, she calls, were you guys bothered on your way here too? The people on the train looked at me so weird today. Uraraka says and places a hand over her heart. Izuku smirks up at her. Good morning to you too, Uraraka. She blushes hard at her lack of manners and sputters, but Izuku continues before she can try to form a proper answer. I'm joking. Yes, they stared and stuff. Kaken got really angry. He closes with a cheeky smile in his friend's direction. Said friend just scoffs and pointedly turns away from the conversation. Shaking his head, Izuku notices Ida coming over as well. Good morning, Midoriya. Good morning, Bakugo, he states formally. Katsuki grunts in acknowledgement, which is more than Izuku would have expected, while the greenette chirps his own, good morning Ida, back. Hey Ida, were the people ogling you like that too? Uraraka asks him as well. The tallest of the present teens shakes his head. No, I actually took my brother's offer to take one of the Idaten team's private transportation. He trails off. You mean you came here in a limousine? She exclaims, surprised. He frantically denies. Oh, no, it wasn't a limousine, merely a normal car they use on pursuits. With squinted eyes, Uraraka accepts his excuse. Soon, more of their classmates join them, filling the room bit by bit. By the time the first bell rings, everyone is collected in different little groups around their tables. With the second bell, the students decide to stop chatting to sit down in their respective places, waiting for their teacher to show up. Which he does a few moments later. Wrapped in bandages across his face. And across his arms. A girl speaks up, should you be here, Aizawa-sensei? That was probably Hagakure, the invisible one. My injuries are irrelevant. What should concern you way more is the UA Sports Festival. It will be held in 2 weeks and it's your first proper chance to show the pro heroes out there what you guys can do, the tired man explains. But, sensei, a boy in the middle speaks up, should we really have the festival when we only just escaped the attack of a new group of villains? Izuku recognizes the black-haired teen as Hantasiro. His quirk allows him to shoot sticky tape from his elbows, basically granting him some of the powers similar to USA's Spider-Man. Especially at a time like this, UA has to show that we aren't scared of what happened. The sports festival is far too important for your careers for you to consider us canceling it. Aizawa explains. Additionally, we are in the process of revamping the security and defense systems. The sports festival will be the safest place in Mizudafu, maybe all of Japan, on the day it is held. He assures them. Approving mumbles drift through the students. Quickly, the first half of the day with normal classes passes. Before they know it, Class 1A find themselves in their classroom before lunchtime. They all chat about the upcoming big event. Uraraka takes the lead in pumping herself up, making a face that scares off some of her classmates with how serious she looks. Gotta admit, a smile suits you better, comes the unexpected remark from Shinso. Blushing, the brunette can't help but stammer. Her serious look is all but gone. Kaminari juts his elbow into the purple-haired teen, wiggling his eyebrows with a wide smirk on his lips, which results in a light dust of pink across Shinso's cheekbones from the innuendo. Stop that, he says with a firm voice. Yeah, Denki, don't just assume feelings. Juro adds. It's rude. Approving nods around the class make the blonde sink low into himself, mumbling a quiet apology. I'm gonna beat you all anyway. Getting first place will show the pros who deserves to be one of them. Katsuki brags. Izuku elbows him in the side. Don't be rude now. Also, you know who's getting first place and his name isn't Katsuki Bakugu. He smirks. Whoa, Izuku can look menacing like that. Uraraka murmurs at the person next to her, namely Ishido. Said Pink Girl eyes the mentioned boy and snorts, oh god, he looks like an angry puppy or something. Who's a puppy? Asks Hagakure from Ishido's other side. Izuku. The other two answer in unison, which catches the greenette's attention. He perks up. I heard my name? He asks in their direction. Uraraka waves him off. Oh, nothing. We were just saying how confident you are. Katsuki scoffs. Of course he's confident. He's the strongest in our class, next to me. A giggle escapes Izuku and soon most of their classmates join him. Even Katsuki himself can't suppress a snort and grin at some point. On their way to the cafeteria, Izuku and Katsuki are joined by Ida and Uraraka. So, I meant to ask you guys. Why are you aiming to be a hero? Izuku asks Ida first. To join your family? He adds. The teen with the glasses nods. Yes. Our family agency has a really good reputation, so I'm honored to be part of it someday. The blonde scoffs, FING elites. Yeah, you stick to your family. Izu and I will become the top pros once we're done with UA, he says confidently. Izuku smiles at his friend, but turns to the girl of the group afterwards. How about you? She hesitates for a moment. I don't have any noble goal like you guys. To be perfectly honest, I'm in it for the paycheck. My parents work hard every day in their construction company, so I hope to take some pressure off their shoulders. Uraraka explains. Ida hums. I don't know what you mean, Uraraka-san. That goal sounds noble as well. If my parents weren't as well off as they are anyways, I'd aim for something similar as well, he says with an approving nod. Izuku wanted to add something as well to cheer his friend up, when they all come to a stop in front of a small intersection of hallways. Lo and behold, there crouches All Might, just his shoulders and his head show around the corner. He raises a lunch pack into view and speaks up, young Midoriya, would you join me for lunch? While Uraraka cracks up into breathless laughter, Izuku quickly says some parting words to his friends and follows All Might into one of the teachers' lounges. The rest of the group heads for the cafeteria, not noticing their dual-themed classmates slowly following to listen to them talk about Midoriya and All Might. Meanwhile, All Might had led Izuku to the lounge, closing the door behind the teen. Can I offer you some tea, young Midoriya? Politely, Izuku declines. What did you want to talk about? He asks instead. All Might sits down across from Izuku, facing him from the armchair. Thanks to you, young man, my body is in better shape than in any of the recent years. My time limit is stretching again and I don't transform back as violently as before, he says. Sipping some tea and clearing his throat, he continues, furthermore, I am still looking for a successor, albeit with less stress involved. The teacher trails off with an awkward laugh. If you're asking me again to take one for all, my opinion is still the same. Izuku fills the pause. All Might shakes his head. I thought as much. I was hoping maybe young Bakugu would be a choice you would approve of. Seeing as you grew up together, you know him well enough to know if he would be interested. Thinking for a moment, Izuku contemplates. Eventually he speaks up again. I mean, I think he would appreciate the thought, but I doubt he would want to take your torch. There's a lot of pressure involved. He's also really proud of his quirk and how far we have come without any help already. To be perfectly honest, he might even get offended when he thinks you don't see him worthy to become one of the top heroes as he is. Offended? All Might asks, surprised. Izuku hums, he might think of it as cheating, taking a power that didn't belong to him since the beginning. You might not mean it like that, but he thinks very highly of himself. Better not offer it to him. I might tell him someday that you considered him, but I know he wants to get to the top with his own achievements. The hero nods in understanding. Oh, I will honor your opinion. Thank you kindly for this information. But don't discredit your own achievements either. Also aim for the top, never settle. Your quirk is very special and so are you. If anyone can make it to the top, I am confident it's going to be the two of you. At the end of the day, Class 1A is glad to be done with their work. They all chat a bit while getting ready to leave. Uraraka is the first one at the classroom's door, opening it to reveal a hallway full of students in front of it. What's going on here? She says, shocked at the amount of unknown faces eyeing her. Katsuki turns at her call, immediately ticked off by the teens in front of the door. They're here to scout out the competition, isn't that obvious? He asks, stepping up to the first row of students blocking the way. He snaps, out of the way, extras. Izuku follows him and lays a hand on his friend's shoulder. Calm down, Kaken. He quietly commands his quirk to change to psychic, turning around to the rest of his classmates while it takes hold. Who wants a lift out of here? Most of them cheer, some louder than others, and start to float just a moment later. The only ones staying on the ground being Mizo Shoji, Fumikage Tokoyami, and Shoto Todoroki. Before he can carry his classmates to safety, though, a certain blonde mockingly speaks up, "Oh, so Class 1A, the students who survived the attack of a villain organization, are too cowardly to face their own peers." Izuku interrupts his tirade that threatened to escalate. "Nah, we just don't want to shove our way through you guys, possibly hurting someone." He floats over to the offender, laying in the air in a pointedly relaxed position. "You know, Nito Monoma, you should watch what you're saying. People might take it to heart, the nonsense you're spewing." Monoma looked positively shocked and offended, mouth agape at the teen above him. At a loss for words, his classmate, Tetsu speaks up. "Yo, don't be so full of yourself. There are other people that are strong too." The manly man of Class 1B yells over a bunch of students' heads at Izuku. The greenette regards him. "Oh, I'm not full of myself," he says and floats Katsuki over. Pointing at him he adds, "He might be, though dash." The blonde cuts in turn pointing at the silver-haired, "Oh, shut the F up, extra. The only thing that matters is that we beat you in the sports festival. You better take this class seriously or get stomped." He yells the last part and points a thumb down. Indignantly, the mass starts roaring. Izuku can only laugh at his childhood friend's speech, carrying his friends over and away from the mob of students. Outside of the building, Class 1A Sans 3 agree that they would diligently train in their free time on top of school to prepare for the upcoming event, the sports festival.
Thanks for watching, Legends. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more epic What If Deku stories and fresh updates. Hit that bell so you never miss the next upload. See you in the next one.